getting if I may say, the adrenaline and the energy level high up. But we have a very key discussion now, and this is basically called Teaching and Learning Post-Pandemic is HyFlex Model of Future. So HyFlex is a new term that's emerged in recent months. It's a mixture of hybrid and flexible. So now it's inevitable that all, all schools and educational institutions will follow a hybrid or a blended model of learning in the future, where even the earlier sessions we discussed, it cannot be completely in person or cannot be completely virtual anymore. And obviously, when you are talking of such a hybrid or blended learning model, there has to be quite a lot of flexibility involved there. So this is the HyFlex model, and for the panel discussion, I would like to now call on stage the panelists who are involved. So I would welcome Mr. Kunal Mehra, India Country Head, Crimson Education. Next, we have Dr. Sebastian PG, Principal of Crest Academy, CBSE School of Bangalore. Round of applause for Dr. Sebastian. We have with us Mr. Bhushan Kumar, Regional School Director, North Zealand Limited. A round of applause for Mr. Bhushan Kumar. We have with us Dan Curry, Director and Principal, Vega Schools, Gurgaon. Welcome to the show, Dan. We have with us Dr. S.K. Rathore, Founder, Chairman, and Managing Director of Sanford Group of Schools. Welcome, Dr. Rathore. We have with us Meet Shah, National Head, People Link Unified Communications. Welcome, Meet. And to moderate this discussion, we have with us Shobik Goswami, co-founder and chief group editor of APAC News Network. Shobik.
Thanks, Rajneesh, for inviting all the eminent speakers for this panel. And as I see, the Galaxy So we'll try to understand that how things have unfolded, what were the challenges, and where do we see the education system going maybe 4 years, 5 years down the line. I must say that 4 years, 5 years down the line, too long a period. The way things are changing fast because of pandemic. Every other day some kind of new innovation is coming, new approach to life, new approach to teaching is coming. So I think we'll try to find answers from all of you on that part. Let me first start with Dr. S.K. Rathore, founder, chairman, and managing director of Sanford Group of Schools. So, Mr. Rathore, how do you see the journey of personalized way of learning and how it is affecting the children per se? Because you have been handling kids for so many years now, and you have witnessed what happened through the pandemic. And now we are back to new normal, and let's hope that it stays now for a while. So your thoughts on that, sir?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Souvik, for inviting me on this conclave and giving me opportunity to sit along with eminent speakers on the stage. So when I've gone through your agenda in the mail, so the new terminology I come across. So I tried to find out it on Google what I have to speak on. So it was very difficult to find out. So I think this must be, invented by you people only.
Hopefully, thankfully.
So, see, when we talk about digital or flexible or physical classroom teaching, uh, obviously, the kind of mindset Indian parents have, the kind of system our children has gone through years and years of the schooling. See, there's no replacement of physical classroom teaching. One thing, what I have come across in last quarter itself, last 3 months. See, now nobody is interested in virtual classroom and virtual learning. One thing. Second, when what is the terminology? I don't remember.
High flex.
Hybrid
and flexible.
Hybrid and flexible. So flexibility in terms of timings of the class. See, now this pandemic has taught everyone education or any meeting could happen anytime, anywhere. So flexibility, we can say that's the flexibility will remain in the system forever now, because today's children are very much goal oriented, and in many of the cases I have seen lots of new things coming in the mind of the children, students. So parents come forward now. The parents have n number of questions. I think everybody sitting in this hall witness this. Have n number of questions as far as their technology in the education system is concerned. The kind of technology a school is using, what kind of delivery school is going to give using that technology, and what is the output they can expect from it. So lots of things are happening. But still every parent want to make their child as an engineer. IIT करना है या NEET pass करना है. So this is the this is the sad part of the mindset of the Indian parents. Still they are looking for their child to become an IITian or a medical student. So yes, I strongly believe, because I am a technology guy. Before the education, I was in technology. So I am a technology guy. So I strongly believe technology has changed the education system in last 2 years of the pandemic. And now technology will change everything in the education system. Maybe 3, 4, 5 years down the line, this terminology, what you people have invented, this will come into reality.
Quite an important point shared by you, Mr. Rathod. I'll come back to you. Let's have a different perspective from Dan Curry, Director and Principal of Vega Schools, Gurugram. Otherwise, I'll be bashed, not saying the rightly pronounced the name of the city. So, Dan, where do you see the evaluation which has happened last 2-3 years in terms of evidence-based practices, in terms of imparting education to children? Your thoughts on that?
Repeat the question.
Evidence-based education. Where do you see the journey so far, and where do you see we are going towards?
Right. Well, I think it's important that we think of education in terms of this. It's evidence-based, and the topic for today on this hybrid model, I think we've learned good things about what works. We've learned what doesn't work. We've made some real leaps. But the question, as you ask, is how do we make sure that in the context of this hybrid or this online sort of model of delivery, that we're maintaining evidence-based practice. We see a lot of people offering solutions to problems that we hadn't even thought of yet. And so we need to make sure that as educators, we're looking at research-based pedagogies, that we're doing tried, tested, and true approaches and curriculum. We need to be studying brain research. And I think there's been more interest in that. And that rolls over into our students. We want our learners to also make sure that they have a critical mind towards what they see and hear. Now, after the pandemic, they've been at home 2 years. They've had the whole world open to them through the internet. And we need to make sure they have those critical thinking skills to determine the truth of what they're seeing, to understand when they're trying to be persuaded. And I think ultimately, how can you design a hybrid model that shows that kids are doing something and understanding something? So that's a challenge. And honestly, you know, what we've seen is that in the hybrid model, or when we were online for the pandemic, most of the education became fairly traditional, lecture-based, passage of information. Now, online is great for that because you can assign things, you can go learn things on YouTube. That's for transfer of information. But we want to make sure our kids are interacting with the information, they're developing critical thinking, they're solving problems. That's a struggle to do in any kind of hybrid model. So, you know, the practices that we're doing and what we see in the NEP as well, they're moving towards very strong pedagogy, very strong instructional practices. And because the research now shows, the evidence shows that memorization does not equal critical thinking or deeper understanding. And no longer in education do we need to just remember bits of information, we have to apply it. So I think there's still a lot of area for growth for developing evidence-based, you know, we only have 2 years of evidence, right, for this pandemic. So developing the best evidence-based responses to this. I think our first speaker said it, you know, nothing can replace kids being in a classroom with the teacher. But there are times that technology can solve problems of distance and solve problems of a transfer of knowledge from specific expertise, connecting with the International Space Station. You know, there's some wonderful things that this can do. But I still think there's room for growth in that in the online world.
So impediments in critical thinking, that's what you're trying to point out in terms of hybrid or blended learning model. Maybe we can see a lot of innovation happening at that front. I'll take a perspective from Meet Shah as well, because he's representing the technology solution providing angle here in this panel. I come to you, Meet. But before that, let's have a perspective from Mr. Bhushan Kumar. He's the regional school director for the North Zone, Learn Limited. Mr. Bhushan, your thoughts, as Dan talked about the challenges of critical thinking in terms of evidence-based education. Do you agree with that, or do you have a different perspective to that?
At present, looking at the present scenario in the 21st century, we at ZLearn really look at it critically. There's a lot of back homework which happens. Evidences play a very important role because that's one of the tools to start measuring the outcome, start measuring what you have achieved, what was possible, what outcome is there on ground, how can we fill in the gap with that analysis. So if that's measurable online using technology, if that's measurable using evidences, using proper rubrics, that's going to add a value, because ultimately teachers have to play a role more than a teacher. That's a mentoring, facilitating, mother in the class, a role model, all that which is required for the 21st century skill building, which we say that we are people in the education field with big heart and great minds. And when I say great minds, it's great school, great future. So we, even sitting in the head office, our main journey starts in the day. It's not, there's no time limitation. We say for the teachers, educators work for 12 hours. We, behind the scene, works for almost 24 hours, 24/7, because anything which can add value to the child is all seen by us. We have started doing back homework. What CBSE says now, or what NEP says 2020, we had been doing for 7-8 years. Last 8 years we have been doing it. That was part of our emerging student profile. We were working on it. Evidences play a very important role. Documentation play a very important role. Even analysis or assessments happening in the class, outside the class, from home, does add a lot of value. There are feedbacks from the students, feedback from the teachers, feedback from the parents, feedback from all the stakeholders. That adds value. Then we are able to measure everything what is happening on ground and even fill in the gap at the required time so that the child can progress. The progress card should speak of progress, not the marks. When I'm talking of holistic development, that's very important for us. 4 pillars of learning that I heard in the morning is learning to know, do, live, and be. And that's what we live with. And that's important for us because when we talk about the strategies being followed into the classrooms, the pedagogical instructional designs being followed into the classrooms, of course, that has to be critically designed to see that the child is really growing in the 21st century. More engagement of the child in the classroom, outside the classroom, even when you say extended home connect, there has to be planned lesson homeworks and a planned timetable for the child, which we normally see it's being followed. There's regular calling, regular connect, and almost care connect, what we say, all C's of learning. When I say care, so for us, I care starts from the time the child is enrolled with us. And to the communication, to the connect, to the collaboration, that's an engagement, building in the conviction, building in that confidence, everyone in the team evolves. If my teacher evolves, it will help my children evolve. So this capacity building training, the maximum number of hours we spend with the teachers after the classrooms get over is what makes a lot of difference back in the class. That's
Interesting perspective by Mr. Bhushan Kumar. I'll have a different perspective from Dr. Sebastian PG. He's a principal of Christ Academy CBSE School from Bengaluru. Dr. Sebastian, what are the salient features of academic curriculum for the future blended learning? Your thoughts on that?
Thank you, sir. At the very outset, I thank the APAC 4th Global Education and Skill Conclave for having thought of this APAC's platform of thinking about high-flex mode of, digitized world to which our younger generation is going to face in the near future. I would like to throw some light onto this topic on the basis of my experience as an academician for the past 35 years plus. The very word curriculum emerges from the Latin word currere, that means run. Run where? Run for life. It is nothing but a race. So for that, we have to equip the students to face their life. That should be the ultimate aim in every educationist. Now, if you think from the government agencies, say the Ministry of Education, thanks to the Department of Education that they have thought about reviving and making the NEP. So far, this is the third NEP, the education policy that has been formulated by the government of India. The first one being in 1968, the second one in 86. And after 34 years, the government has thought of reviving or modifying the syllabi. That is a good gesture. So with this, or prior to this, we used to teach 19th century concepts for the 21st century children. That is why we were lagging behind. We always speak about the Western countries that are advancing. Why don't we think on those grounds? So for that, we have to try developing a curriculum that should be, with a foresight. What after 10 years? Maybe the 22nd century syllabi should be taught in 21st century. There remains, or there stands, how developed we are. And as I mentioned, after the coming from the NCF, National Curriculum Framework, formulated by the officials, it is up to the teachers to impart it. Now, for the teachers, whatever is written curriculum, there will be written curriculum, there will be taught curriculum, there will be evaluated curriculum, there will be omitted curriculum, there will be hidden curriculum, evaluated, assessed curriculum. So from the teacher's point of view, this is going at different paradigms. Now, coming to the students' point of view, that is what we have to think. See, thanks to the pandemic, within quotes, I should say that the pandemic has taught the mankind a great lesson. It is only the pandemic that has made everyone tech savvy, including the tiny tots. We were lagging behind as an educationist. I can say it is only because of the pandemic that I am advanced. And in Christ Academy, Bangalore, what the management did was a wonderful step ahead. At that time, the management saw to it that every employee should be a certified tech savvy to face the challenge. Why? Because, the student community are much ahead. So to beat the target, they were equipped. So equipping ourselves is very, very important. Then coming to, teaching as an enjoyable, stream, there should be total experiential learning. We say total experience of learning for life, TELL, T-E-L-L. So that should be, seen by the educationists. Now, for this, of course, the digital platforms, the companies that are, the software developers or, such companies should come forward and they should equip or have discussions with the policy formulators or the bureaucrats so that such steps can be taken for the future. We always tell education mostly is confined in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So if we just reverse it, it becomes METS. That is to say, the mindfulness of the children, the mindfulness of the teachers, the mindfulness of the bureaucrats. Then emotional soundfulness, the children should be equipped, emotionally fit they should be. Then technologically, they should be well equipped with and they should be made skillful. So I can say that, we have been teaching the students how to use technology. Instead, we must make them create technology. That should be our outlook. That is what I say. So that way we can make, as the speaker in the morning said, education can be an enjoyable platform for each and everyone, and India can always stand upright among other nations. Thank you.
Making education enjoyable through innovation, if I may say, a crux of what you have said. I'll come back to Dr. Sebastian. Let's have a perspective from a young mind. Kunal Mehra, Indian country head of Crimson Education. Kunal, in this hybrid mode of education or blended mode of education, suppose we are again back to that kind of scenario where we are focusing more on online education, hybrid mode of education, students are at their home, schools happening virtually. How do you monitor or evaluate student learning in that kind of scenario?
Sure. Thank you, Souvik, for having me here. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be amongst this panel. Well, I think it's not a what-if scenario that we will be back where students have to be home. And I believe that's not because we will have another wave of COVID, but because I believe truly that learning is moving online. Of course, there are merits in the physical environment, but I believe education is a combination of many experiences. There is the learning experience, there is the social experience, and there are many other experiences, skill building, etc. The learning piece is something that can easily move only online. The social experience, of course, is lacking. You want to be in the same space, in the same classroom. But when it comes to teaching, I believe there is nothing stopping us from moving learning to complete an online scenario, and not because of COVID, but because it's convenient, it's easy, it's scalable, right? Today you have some great teachers who can only teach 50 kids in one classroom and in one, in one period of class. If the same person can be teaching a larger number of audience through technology, why not, right? Now, the interesting question is, of course, of measurability. Now, there are two parts to measuring. One is to measure data, and the other is to measure engagement, right? I believe we've only scraped the surface with technology in the last 2-3 years that we've been online with COVID. We were forced upon this, right? There was not like we wanted to become online. We were forced into it, right? I've been in education for now more than 17 years. I've been in education technology before the word EdTech even came about. And I can say that all we've really done is scrape the surface all of these 20 years. There's a lot more that can happen. I know I'm deviating a little bit, but you asked the panel, where do you see the education technology moving 3 to 4 years or 5 years? And I think we're at the cusp of a pretty big change when it comes to education and technology. So far, it's only been technology, and technology kind of carrying education with us, which is what we've really done is we've put a class teacher on a Zoom or on a Microsoft Teams. We've put 50 people in their homes with their laptops. That's not education technology. I mean, that really isn't technology. I mean, if you think about technology has disrupted so many other sectors in such meaningful and deeper way that if you think that is education technology, then I feel we're way off that mark, right? We've put man on moon, and you can sit at home and order groceries, and we believe that technology is disrupting education because we have someone sitting on a video camera and teaching you. So I think there's a huge way to go for us. In terms of tools, engagement, I think it's a ongoing evolutionary process where as we build these systems, we are building systems to track both quantifiable data as to what students are really doing online, and it's possible to do that in a technology scenario online as opposed to in a physical space. I mean, I've been a teacher in my life, and I've taken classes where I had no idea what was happening in the student's mind, right? Or whether they were really spending any time following up what was being taught in the classroom. But with an online, real-time feedback systems that we can develop, I think there's a long way. We can really fix those issues with technology. When it comes to engagement, I think, again, technology allows us to be able to track how kids are learning, what they're doing, what they're learning. Are we accomplishing the learning outcomes that we set down for a particular concept? And we don't have to wait until an end-term exam or a mid-term exam to do that. There's real-time feedback after every session that you can get to be able to understand. You can use technology in a hybrid way, even in a classroom where you could be where the teacher becomes a facilitator as opposed to being just coming there and writing something on the board. You have pre-work that you can do using lectures or material that you can share before a class and come into the class and actually have a conversation as opposed to, rote learning-based learning scenario. And I think, as I said, there's a long way for us to go when it comes to blending hybrid and flexible systems. We've just scraped the surface.
I'll take a cue from what Kunal has said, and I'll come to meet Shah. He's the National Head, People Link Unified Communications, because I think most of you who have already spoken all have agreed in one point that there's a long way to go in terms of disruption through technology in its truest form for the education sector. Meet, you're representing a technology company, right? Do you think that it's still a long way to go, or we have covered a long radius already and only a little way to go? Your thoughts on that?
Hello. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on this panel. I have a little different perspective. I respect all the thoughts that the people, the respected panel members have shared here. But at the same time, I would just like to add a couple of, my viewpoints on this. Okay, when we talk about high-flex classrooms, when we talk about technology, when we talk about reaching the mass, right? I see a lot of people, blaming pandemic for, getting into the technology-driven education. Yes. As a solution provider, we've been in this business since last 15 years now, okay, for smart classroom solutions, virtual classroom solutions, unified communication solutions. I can give you hundreds of examples where before the pandemic itself, there were a lot of people who had a vision that I am right now teaching 50 people. I'm right now teaching 100 people. I know I have quality, but I don't have time. I cannot reach everywhere. So we have hundreds of such examples where people have started from 5 virtual classrooms and they've grown up to 150 virtual classrooms in the span of 6 months. What meant for them was imparting the same quality of education to almost 10 times the crowd than what they could do physically. That was, where the vision was coming from. And what I agree is the pandemic has definitely, it has basically passed on that vision to the mass. That's what pandemic has done for us, right? So it has skyrocketed the requirement of, getting into a virtual classroom or getting into a smart classroom kind of a solution. Yes, it definitely has done that. What we also believe is, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So that's where pandemic has, made everybody feel. So there's a basic theory, a need, a want, and a demand, right? So yes. So what pandemic has done is, it has taken one step ahead of even need, want, and demand. It is a necessity now. That's how it is, right? Now, talking about the 3 major concerns, while getting into these virtual classrooms or smart classrooms or high flex classrooms, as we now call it, right? The 3 major concerns is, first thing is, how do we ensure that the quality of education, what is getting imparted to 50 students at one given point of time, the same quality can be maintained for 500 students at one given point of time. That's one of the concerns. Second concerns, since we've got the faculty, I'm sure everybody would agree to me on this, there's a limited faculty available with us. We don't have an unlimited resource in terms of faculty, right? And especially in terms of the quality of faculty, right? So we need to ensure that the quality of lives for the faculty also is taken care of. And the third concern that our prospects or our clients have been sharing with us is the cost. At what cost? When we're talking about teaching 5,000 students at a time, when we're talking about maintaining the lives of the quality of the lives of the faculty, what is going to be the cost that we're going to be incurring on this, right? Both in terms of the cost at an institution level and at the cost at the students level. They should also not be burdened enough, right? These are the major 3 concerns that the institutions share with us, right? Now, what do they need is basically a solution. I'm giving you a bird's eye view, okay? What do they need is basically a solution where the students should feel that they are physically present in the class. Although they are not physically present, they are virtually present, but the students should feel that they are physically present in the class. That's what is meant by an experience that we create, right? And the solution for both the concerns and the needs right now is high flex classrooms. When we talk about high flex classrooms, there are 5 major components of any high flex classrooms. I would just like to put forward, I mean, everybody knows this, but just to put it forward in the forum, there are 5 major components in any high flex classrooms. One is the software. The biggest contributor is the software. So be it a virtual communication software or a complete LMS software, learning management system, wherein right from an admission of the student to the final exit of the student, everything is managed online. The examinations are managed online, the meetings, the classrooms are managed online, everything is managed online. Those are the software part of it. The second is the cameras, the quality of the cameras and the high-tech operational functionalities of the cameras in terms of tracking the faculty wherever the faculty is going in the class. Because our faculty is in India specifically, they are habituated to move around in the classroom while teaching the students. So the cameras should be, competent enough, or should have the functionality of tracking those faculties and ensuring that the faculty is always in the center of the frame. Otherwise, when we talk about the student, if he doesn't see the faculty in the frame, gone. The whole concentration is gone. The cameras, second part. The third part is the audio, wherein, whatever the faculty is talking, suppose there are few students present in the classroom, the sound should be locally sound reinforced, like what is happening right now. The students should be able to hear him clearly. For students who are sitting in the remote locations, they should be able to hear him clearly. And whatever the students are talking back, that should be audible clearly to the faculty and to every student and the students physically present in the classroom also, without any echo, any noise. That's where the audio solution comes into picture. Right? So we've spoken about three components: software, camera, and audio. The fourth component in any high-flex classrooms nowadays is the interactive displays, which is right now replacing the entire whiteboard concept of classrooms. You get 4K level interactive displays where you can just use it for playing your content, for playing your videos, for playing your images, and you can immediately switch to whiteboard, blackboard mode where you can just use a stylus to write whatever you want to write. So that's the fourth most important component of a high-flex classroom. And the fifth component is a digital podium. Now, this is where, if you see here, the lot of cables which are housed inside the podium. So the classroom should be neat and clean. So everything goes inside the podium. The audio goes inside the podium. The computer goes inside the podium. The display goes inside the podium. The ports of the computers are on the top. So everything is inside the podium, right? That's where the podium plays a major role. And if I talk about our organization, it's been, as I said, it's been 15 years in this business now, and we've launched all the products matching to all these 5 requirements. We've launched the world's first virtual classroom enabled podium with a complete audio solution inbuilt. As I said, we've launched the world's first 4K video conferencing solution and LMS solutions. We've launched the lecturer tracking cameras, automatic lecturer tracking cameras. We've launched the complete audio solution and the software part of it. So when we combine all these 5 components, and we give it to a client, and from the time he starts using it, we've got so many testimonies, we've got so many testimonials where people have shared their pleasure with us, and they've thanked us. And, in terms of giving them these solutions, so that they told us that you made our lives easier. That's the final verdict, right? That we want to hear from our clients, that we want to hear from everybody, that you made our lives easier. So that's what, the high-flex classrooms are all, meant to hear, right? That these classrooms have made our lives easier. So that's what I would like to just put it on the forum here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Meet talked about the 5 components, according to him, which can transform the classroom experience, be it virtually, especially in the high-flex model. Interesting. I'll come to Rathorji. Mr. Rathor, I just want to have a different perspective on this entire discussion which we're having in terms of high-flex model, that is hybrid and flexible model. We know access to internet, access to connectivity is still a problem. Not even in tier 2, tier 3 cities, even in tier 1 cities. In some places, you cannot even find your mobile network. That's a problem, accessibility. But when we are talking about the high-flex model, can we see this challenge as an opportunity in terms of there are many students who are not part of the creamy layer, but who wants to attend a good school. Maybe he is unable to go physical to that school. Can this high-flex model actually transform this entire ball game, which can actually help the entire education ecosystem, not only about the creamy layer of the society, but what about the students who may be studious and meritorious, but they don't have the advantage of going to a renowned school like yours. But can this high-flex model be a game changer? Some subsidy can be given. That's a policy perspective issue, but I'm not getting into that. But do you think that actually can happen near future?
Yeah, thank you, Souvik. You asked the question what I wanted to speak on.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm very fortunate. See, in 2 years of the pandemic, who were the major, loser, if I talk about the students? The students who were studying in the budget private schools, in the rural areas, government schools even in the cities, even in metros and Bombay, Delhi, or any A-grade cities. Because the kind of infrastructure for the online education is required that is not available in the village. I was sitting before this panel there only. So I was trying to access my mail and net was not there. So network problem is in the capital of the country, in the heart of the city, Connaught Place. If the network problem is there at the pin code 1, the network problem can be anywhere. So the main challenge is faced by the children of the rural area. And this is not the problem of the pandemic only. If I go to any place just 50 kilometers from this place, any village, just 50, 60 kilometers from this place, I'll not find even a single school having good teachers. The teachers what we people have in our schools. This is the challenge of the country. See, any teacher who is good in teaching or who is talented, the boy or girl, who find himself or herself up to the mark to the teachers in the cities, A-grade cities, they immediately move to the cities, A-grade cities or B-grade cities, wherever they find the opportunity. So this is the sad part of the education system of our country. Government spendings on the schools, child education is almost equal or in much higher in some cases, some states, than the private schools. But the children are not getting the right education or quality education there. Yes, with the kind of technology we all have, adopted, government again should look into it. Government should relax their requirement of opening a primary school or 10+2 school or middle school. See how many number of rooms we need to have as per the policies of the board. How many PGTs or TGTs or PRTs? There's no need. They should relax the people who wanted to come forward for the education in the society. A person sitting my teacher sitting in Greater Noida can take class there in the, for the children in the rural area. This one-to-one, education can happen. Another thing, as my friend said, technology, EdTech is not taking class on the Google Meet or, Zoom. It's very true. See, we need to, LMS, you people, EdTech people need to develop a platform where the, recorded lecture should look like a live lecture, basically. The kind of delivery a teacher can have in the classroom, that should be reflected in the recorded lectures also, so that the child sitting at the rural area or budget private school or anywhere where good teachers are not there in the classroom, any teacher can work as facilitator and the quality education could be delivered. So what I feel in the coming years, see, through these kind of platforms, government should also come to know this is the solution, what they should look on. See, I was sitting, last month I was in Lucknow, I was sitting with some very, very senior, educationists. And he was saying, I had a meeting with the Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, and he was very worried about the, school system in Uttar Pradesh. वहाँ पर बच्चे नहीं है, स्कूल खाली पड़े हैं. There is no turnaround of the students. Why children lose their interest in going into the school? Because no education is happening. No environment of school is there. So this need to be taken care. And I think this your high flex model or digital or phygital or you name anything, but technology can replace the sad part of today's school education system, and it could be maybe in another 5 years time or 10 years time, the village education may come to the level that education what we are delivering in our school. One thing. Second thing, I look forward for the kind of, research-based education in the school system also. School, classroom sessions should not be lecture delivered. Children should be asked to, attend online, recorded sessions at their home, and they should come to the classroom to have the, for the problem solving basically. They can ask the question what they find difficult while they are going through the recorded lectures. Then you will see the kind of, level of the education system will go up. I think that is the only solution that could happen with the help of technology, with the help of flexibility, because a teacher, doing his or her job in the school in any city cannot deliver the lecture at the same time to the rural area. Evening classes can be taken. So the flexibility, digital, flexible, hybrid, everything is going to change the face of the education in the country. This is my belief. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts, Dr. S.K. Rathore. Kunal Mehra, your thoughts on that?
Can you just kind of touch upon?
No, I was just asking that in terms, we know that the access to internet, access to connection is still a problem in many parts of the country.
Yeah.
I was trying to ask you that, do you think that, as Mr. Rathore was saying, that using technology, using hybrid model, flexible model, we can also address the problems of students who are studious or meritorious, but they don't have access to a quality school?
Sure.
Can actually get access to quality education by using digital tools? Do you think that that can be done and that can be a game changer for coming years or so? Because I think you pointed out that digital education is not about using a Zoom call or just a video conference, much beyond that.
Correct.
So I think you can also enlighten us on that point as well.
So I think a lot of us have commented about the technology infrastructure not being sufficient right now, but we have to understand it's a evolving process. Today we have 5G. 20 years ago we were paying 20 rupees for a minute of a phone call on a mobile phone. So I think technology problems will get solved. So it's not that today we don't have internet in every village in the country, that it will not happen in the last 20 years. I mean, today if you go, we didn't have electricity in all the villages of the country till 20 years ago. If you go to the most rural areas of the country today, you find electricity. And similarly, I think the same will happen with telecommunication, with internet. Phone networks are now present in more places than not, right? This probably is a bad infrastructure design, therefore we don't have internet here, but otherwise if you step out, I'm sure you'll get good internet. Now, in terms of philosophically, the answer to addressing the problem of access lies in the intersection of education meeting technology. It can't be one over the other. I mean, we've always looked at these two in separate silos. And we still haven't figured out where education and technology meet. Once we figure that out, that is the answer for delivering quality education to the masses at scale. I mean, there is no other way to, look at this problem. There are prime examples of people already doing that. Khan Academy is a wonderful example of somebody which has really democratized education, improved access to education, right? In my own organization, we have kids. We also work with, kids who come from slightly underprivileged backgrounds. We have students sitting somewhere in a small village near Ranchi, working with a teacher who actually graduated from Harvard and sitting in the US and actually interacting with that student. That could not be possible without technology. However, I would say basic that technology is at this moment. So to me, the answer lies there. Of course, it's all an evolution. It's all, work in progress. But that's the future, both from a government point of view, as well as the role the private sector has played in the last many years. It's only going to increase. I don't think we can just pass the buck to the government all the time and say they will have to do it. They will look after the infrastructure, but it's us who has to figure out philosophically how education and technology has to blend together, and how do we leverage technology to deliver quality education to the masses.
Right. again, interesting perspective of Kunal, that it's not only about government, but also the education stakeholders has to come together to make that difference where technology and education blends well, gel well together to come up with a brighter future. Thanks, Kunal, for enlightening us. Dr. Sebastian, your thoughts on that quickly, 30 seconds to you, because I have been told that we're running short of time. So now I have to play devil's advocate role. So 30 seconds to you, sir.
Yeah, I would like to add on to this point, where network issues are there, CBSE or, the new education policy has envisaged, school complexes or cluster schools, we say. So where, facilities are less. For example, our management has adopted the nearby government schools where facilities are less. So the less fortunate should also be lifted up. So it all depends on our mentality and our, helping nature. So that way, and there lies the importance of high flexi digital mode. We have the virtual mode, then the hybrid mode, then comes the high flexi mode. For example, in the virtual platform, the students who were unable to listen to the class, what we did was, our teachers used to record the sessions and we used to send through YouTube, only for our students, and for the students whom we sponsor. So those students at their free time, they could listen to it and they could clarify their doubts in the next online platform. So here lies, in addition to the Bloom's taxonomy, the low order of thinking thought skills and high order of thinking skills, digital order of thinking skills, dots should also be incorporated with the education system. That is how we can, help the streamlining in this.
Right,
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, Dr. Sebastian. Again, important, digitally empowered skills, very important. Dan, quickly, your thoughts on the future. 30 seconds to you.
Sure, 30 seconds. It's coming. The future's coming. We're not going to stop it. But I think we can be thoughtful about how we respond when it comes. And again, my question before is about evidence-based practice. We need to not forget the human equation in this. Looking at the evidence of the past 2 years of the pandemic, countries that I've seen research done, and specifically in the US, is that over the past 2 years, the amount of reported mental illness in children has skyrocketed. Children have been isolated. They have not been able to develop their social emotional skills. And now we're seeing that in the classroom. They're coming to us 2 years at home. Some of them have never been into school and first time in school, and they're learning those pieces. So how do we make sure we don't lose that important piece in the social emotional growth of our children and the connectedness that they need as social people, and still leverage what in the old days, we used to call distance learning. And we would mail VHS tapes up to community centers up in the mountains for remote areas, remote towns, and kids would sit down and watch a videotape lecture. I remember when we first started having video calls. It was amazing. It was a real technological wonder and solved a lot of problems for us. So now we've solved some of those access problems. Generally we know how to do that, but how are we going to make sure we address the mental, emotional, social needs of our children in this technological world?
Right. Thanks for being crisp and short, making my life easy. Mr. Bhushan, your thoughts on that, quickly.
Yes. So one is balancing the education of the child in the classroom, outside the classroom, at home. So if we use the same LMS, same platform which we have already given it in the classroom, the child when goes back has ample time to revise it. Even if the child is absent on a particular day, he can go through the concept, because the concept building videos which are already recorded would help him to go through the video to build in his concept, have a better understanding, and then when he comes back to the class, he's asked to apply it. So there's a lot of project-based learning, a lot of research-based activities happening in the class. Engaging the child effectively would make a lot of difference in the time to come, because engagement has to be constructively done, structured well in the pedagogy. And even back at home, you cannot put a 6 hours or a 7 hours timetable. The child requires time to connect to the family, connect to the surrounding, connect to the ecosystem, requires time to play. So technology has to be used optimally, But yes, technology is a value add. We cannot miss it. Of course, pandemic has taught us its necessity, its need, but yes, now we are driving it. So the child or the teacher is always on the driving force. The technology is only a support mechanism to make it better or enriching for the child, enriching for the teachers also, whether it's capacity building program happening online. So for grade 9 to 12, what we had done was, even for the enrolled students and for the other students who wanted to be supported, there are recorded lessons and there are weekend classes, Saturday, Sundays. So even if the child has some network issues back at home or so, there is 2 classrooms made ready, so he can come and attend those live classes by experts there, and even teacher training happening on the weekends, so that the normal regular schedule is not being shifted out. So HiFlex, I say, is the future. The way I look at it is the value add for the future, and is going to help everyone grow in the 21st century, even the mentor and the mentee. Both.
Thanks, Mr. Bhushan Kumar. Quickly, Mitra, I'll end the panel with you. Technology as an enabler, but use technology optimally. Your thoughts on that? Because you present a technology solution company. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll just take a very quick
30 seconds.
30 seconds. So we see 2 problems available with us right now. Okay. Problem number 1 is, when we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, when we talk about, our race towards becoming a developed country, right? And we, in the morning, we heard, from a panelist saying that 70% of India lives in villages, right? So we are talking about a 128, 130 crore population, out of which around 80 crore population lives in villages, right? Now, the quality of the faculty that is available with us and the number of faculty that is available with us is limited, right? And, there are 2 problems that we face. Okay, problem number 1, whether we do the capacity building of our faculties and increase the number of faculties to that level, wherein ideally it should be 1 faculty to 50 students. Right now, if you see the numbers, it will be 1 faculty to, if you go to villages, it will be 1 good quality faculty is to almost 5,000 students. That's how the faculty is. So the problem number 1, the solution number 1 is either we raise the bar of the quality of the faculty and the number of good faculties in the country, which is an emerging process, which will take some time, right? And the second is we spend some money on the technology and ensure that the quality that a faculty has, rather than that quality reaching to 50 students, it reaches to 500 students, which only that only requires some expenses on the technology, on getting the towers installed, getting the enhancers installed, getting the solutions installed everywhere, and that is true. So that will take comparatively much lesser time as compared to developing the faculties, increasing the number of faculties, and getting the capacity building done for those faculties. So I think this solution of letting technology do its job is going to be helping our country
And flexible makes it HiFlex. I'm sure that there's still a lot of things can be discussed, a lot of things still remain unanswered, but at least we got a direction that in which direction education is moving towards, like in terms of this new normal, the realities of new normal, which has taught us to leverage technology, balance between technology and physical form, but we can never simply ignore the power of technology. That's a fact. Thank you so much, all of you. Do join us for the next session. It will be industry presentation by Mr. Vijay Kumar T. He's a GM of Business Development and Operations Learning Spiral. So I invite Mr. Vijay Kumar to come on stage, please. But before that, I request all of you to have a group photo, please, together, please. A huge round of applause for the panel, please. Thank you so much. May I invite Mr. Vijay Kumar T, GM Business Development Operations, Learning Spiral to come on stage, please, for his presentation.
Hello. Hello. Good evening. I'm Vijay Kumar from Learning Spiral Private Limited. I'll take you through a short presentation depicting the products, services, and solutions that we offer. It won't take more than 10 to 12 minutes of time. So here we are. We are in the business of delivering results. We deliver high-stake results. In the year 2002, we developed an online application engine. It actually led to three different progressions: an application engine that led to recruitment, application engine that led to certification, application engine that led to admission. So our entire suite of products, services and solutions were developed and evolved across this ecosystem. So an ecosystem where the student or applicant is centric, and we have got tremendous traction in the last 10 years. So just to give you an idea about what we do, we process high-stake results on over in excess of 1 million per year. We have been in this business for almost 20 years, 100 plus crore transaction, more than 1,000 higher education institutions. We help them managing the student life cycle. More than 40, 45 universities that we work. So two things what we have been very good at: one, scale, and variety. Because as you could see in the map, past 20 years, we have got tremendous implementations, and there has been a considerable learning. So we cater to assessment bodies, government recruitment agencies, PSC recruiters, institutional assessment bodies, skilling bodies. We also work for higher education institutions, which I mentioned: government universities, private universities, deemed and autonomous institutions. Apart from that, there are two aspects which we do, which is about to get traction, because this is something which you're going to hear more in the coming future. We have developed a psychometric assessment tool which actually measures, and we will call this talent analytics. It measures the learned innate potential or innate ability of individual, student precisely, and also the acquired knowledge and certain aspects of emotion. And this could be mapped or configured against various roles in an organization. So typically, this talent analytics helps organization to do acquisition, both fresher recruitment as well as lateral hires, leadership assessment, and it could also be used for identifying the learning needs, training needs, and also in a migration or progression of an employee in an organization. It could be promotion or it could be a role change. So that is what we do. Same thing and apply to a student, typically a graduate. One should be able to understand, identify their motivation, their interests, and their personality, and typically see how they map or match with the career option that they have. So this is something which we are going to implement. Now we'll come back to this. This is precisely what we do in higher education institutions: student life cycle management. So typically, starting from enrollment or admission to convocation or certification. So we manage. So there are a lot of use case scenarios other than what is mentioned here. Something that manages, for example, scholarship or hostel, library, RTI. So there are many, and all this can also, we have integrated solution. We have functional modules for all this thing. It can be very well integrated into our offering. But the most important one, or the most linear one, is the examination management. So we do have a platform called Smart Exam, which kind of helps you typically to manage the, typically it's like a student undergoes, series of formative and summative assessment before they get into, final certification. So we do have modules and solutions for that. But before that, I'll come to that in detail, but before that, we'll actually work on, to start with, it is an admission or enrollment that we do. Again, we have a platform called You Can Apply, using which it is very easy for any institution to configure with an application form or the eligibility checks, the social integration, communication, even merit list generation. They can generate the logic for merit list generation. So merit list could be a derivative of either the subject that they have learned before, or it could be an entrance examination. So we do have solution for both. As far as entrance or tests are concerned, we do have online examinations and we do have remote proctoring, online assessment. So I just want to mention one thing: this variety and scale, and efficiency and speed. That is something which is very important, because we have worked with scenarios where 10,000 candidates would have applied for less than 10 courses to 7 lakh plus candidates applying for 700 plus courses. So that is a kind of variety. Speed is very important because often we don't get much time in implementing. So many times when there is an implementation, we hear that, this should have been implemented yesterday. Another, and it is very dynamic. So we have come across situations where there has to be an implementation. Last minute there is a court case and there is a change in, the social, quota or student, college or courses. So You Can Apply platform is so much evolved that it can take all the variations, it can all the changes, and it's so dynamic it can be implemented seamlessly. So apart from that, now the next most important offering that we have is Smart Exam. So Smart Exam, it typically starts with enrollment. So unless and until you have an enrollment which is not centralized, you will have to map the entire process of enrollment. So after enrollment, what you get is an enrollment number. There are few aspects into Smart Exam which is very important. We have stakeholders like colleges, we have stakeholders like admission, examination cell. So you look into the varieties, there are huge variations. So we have schedule, syllabus, we have options for valuations, digital valuations, formative assessment could be made, quizzes, surveys. So typically at the end of application, we have something called as, analytics for generating the question paper. And apart from all this, so, we have a learning management system. So this is what typically we do. We have implementations for more than 5 million students currently take up in higher education institutions in India. So before ending, I just want to add one thing. So we've been in the business of assessment. So what next? That is where we have come out with a learning assessment, learning outcome analytics. One thing you would have understood, in learning, whatever engagement that you have, assessment is the single point of big data capture. So we have defined, so typically it works like this. You try to generate big data, define objectives for intervention and prediction, visualize and understand, conclude and act. I just wanted to share one case study. Recently, we've been working with one of the government, public sector government department, where they had to take informed decisions in terms of what is the kind of intervention that the department has to take to improve the performance of the students. So as you know, the typical approach is to generate the results, wait for, intervention in terms of what kind of moderation need to be done and how it has to be, moved from X to Y in terms of percentage performance. So an attempt was made to convert question items. That's point number one I mentioned. Map the curriculum, skill, and learning outcomes of each and every question items. So a question bank was generated, and each and every question items were mapped against the topic. It could be, for example, if it's a specific subject, or in that, what concepts. So typically, it is like to which curriculum, what skill, and what is the learning outcome that is expected out of that particular question. So when a question paper is generated, and when an assessment happens, it is easy for you to analyze. And it is the objective that you need to generate. And the objective could be anything. So I'll just give an example of curriculum analytics that we have done. So this is a sample picture of the various skills. Here we are trying to understand for various skills how many students across the time had participated. So the insight was tremendous. So we were able to identify that which subject, which concept is being understood, or which concept is different, what pattern of question was difficult for students, and across the categories it was analyzed. So it was possible for the department to take analysis. So there was one insight that there are certain areas where actually the teachers in a particular subject are not available. So capturing assessment score across modes, digital evaluation of physical answers. So this is about how we are going to capture assessment scores. In the example that we mentioned, we captured the assessment scores, in the form of an OMR sheet. Now, if you have an LMS in place, it is much more easy. You have an online formative continuous assessment, it is much more easier. So whatever be the method, you do the evaluation, you do the online assessment, have a question paper, have each and every question system tagged to the curriculum or skill or outcome, then it is possible for you to. So defining objectives. So what is that you want to understand? What is that you want to analyze? Visualize and understand. So typically, I have shown you there is something, so learning outcome is a huge topic and there is a lot of visualizations we could do. And as you know, you continuously keep assessing, continuously keep analyzing, patterns will emerge. And once you have patterns, you could have AI-enabled insights and intervention, and this will lead to predictions. You will be able to predict the outcome. You will be able to even benchmark in terms of what is the right kind of learning or what is the right kind of outcome that is desired. So this is an area which we would like to traverse. So thank you very much. So you have any questions?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Vijay Kumarti, for talking about deriving meaningful insights, leveraging technology, and that can optimize the quality of education. Thank you.
Thank you.
To continue, like the trend from the morning has been how technology has been helping different aspects of education. So now we would be talking about one important aspect of education, admission in institutions of higher education. So this topic is leveraging innovation technologies to augment the admissions process. And it's my pleasure to call the eminent panelists who are part of this discussion. May I request Commander Dr. Bhushan Devan, Vice Chancellor and President of Sridhar University, Pilani. A round of applause for Commander Bhushan. Can we have on stage Dr. GRC Reddy, Vice Chancellor, SR University, Hyderabad. Round of applause for Dr. Reddy. Can we have on stage Dr. Dheeraj Sanghi, Vice Chancellor of JK Lakshmipat University, Jaipur. Round of applause for Dr. Sanghi. And to moderate the discussion, can I call on stage Mr. Hemant Sahal, Founder and CEO of Kolpol. Welcome, Hemant. It's all yours.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you to APAC for this opportunity and organizing this event. I think we literally had a panel discussion between ourselves, just 30 minutes before, and we had a wonderful conversation. So what we are going to do, considering that we have here some very eminent panelists who have a very, very vast exposure in the higher education, as well as in other, like we have Dr. Bhushan from who has a Navy background, and Dr. Sanghi, who's also been in the public institutions earlier, and Dr. Reddy. So we've actually thought that we will be talking about the larger area around student centricity, because that's one of the key areas today that most of the universities and good higher education institutions are thinking about. And as we were talking, Indian higher education is going through a tremendous transformation. A lot of us may not realize it, normally, but if you look at most of the top institutions, they know it, that how things are changing so drastically. And in the next 5 to 10 years, it would be completely different. And there are so many different elements and dimensions to it. So one of the dimensions is student centricity. That in India, education institutions have not been really very student-centered. But if you go to US, one of the things that I have personally seen while traveling is how institutions there look at students in some ways as customers, and as any company would actually care really highly for the student, for the customer experience. Universities and colleges look at student experience as one of their topmost priorities. So my first question to all the three panelists here is that what does student experience mean to you, first of all? So if very quickly, within a minute or two, if you can define student experience according to you, what does that mean? and then we'll probably open the conversation to some deeper questions here. So we'll probably start with you, Dr. Reddy, and then to you, and then to Dr. Sanghi here. Yeah. Actually,
At the outset, let me first thank APAC for inviting me for this panel discussion. My observation tells me that, throughout the world, no university, no educational institution is known because of its brick and mortar. They are known because of its faculty and the students more than the president or vice chancellor of that university. Of course, vice chancellor also is very important to facilitate, to guide, but more than that, it is the students and teachers which are important. In the present scenario, out of these two, students have become more important because teachers are becoming more or less, facilitators. So education importing should be student-centric, right from admission stage onwards to teaching to their experiential learning, even after leaving institution also, everything should be student-centric, then only the university will flourish. This is my take in brief. Thank you.
Hearty good evening to all of you. I think it is a tough session. Good evening, right? It's 4:30 perhaps? 5. It's a tough task to keep awake and listen to us guys talking about, hi-fi logic. I think we can see, you can see us, a lot of light on us, but I can't see many people. One can be, we are teachers, one can be, quite bored. That yesterday I came across a joke. One student was a good, supposedly bright student was failed by a teacher, all right? And he went to the teacher and he told him that, how come you have failed me? I'm a bright guy, you have failed me. He said, no, how come you're a bright guy? He said, okay, I'll ask you a question. If you can answer that question, if you can't answer the question, you have to pass me. Done. So that student asked the teacher, question was in 3 parts. First part, A part, tell me something which is legal but not logical. Part B, something which is logical but not legal. And part C, something which is neither logical nor legal. The teacher was stumped. It's very easy to ask very tough questions from anybody. That requires no brains. Full night, the guy couldn't sleep properly. Next day morning, he came to the class. He threw the same question to the class. It's very easy to teach. You can ask questions from students. The student got up. He said, I'll answer. So, okay, get up. So the guy answered, see, sir, you are a 60-year-old guy. Of course, I'm 70, all right, doesn't fit me. You are a 60-year-old guy and you have married a 23-year-old girl. So that is legal, but not logical. And that girl is having an affair, that your wife is having an affair with a young man, that is logical, but not legal. And third thing, the guy in question is me. You have passed me even though I had failed. So that is neither logical nor legal. Nobody got the joke, is it? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I am only laughing. It means very few people are awake. Okay, I'll tell you. I think Hemant has really turned the topic very nicely. Unless you are customer-centric, the whole focus is that in any commercial transaction, any business transaction, or any transaction which has to go forward, it should be win-win. And win-win, how does win-win come? I think student, who's the main customer, who's a key stakeholder, he should derive most benefit out of it. Now, what is most benefit? maximizing his learning outcome, maximizing his knowledge, maximizing his skills, and all that is done nicely. As they say, you know, when you serve food, it should be good, nutritious food, but served tastefully, served in good decoration and neatly, right? So same thing I can sense. Student-centric means what? Maximizing learning of throughput. That is what student wants inherently, though he may not say it, articulate very clearly, but in a very enjoyable fashion. But there again, to my mind, there is no absolute yardstick. If you leave it on student-centric, doesn't mean student decide everything. To my mind, it should be a negotiated decision. For example, now if you're the boss of a guy, you must set your targets in a negotiated way. Okay, boy, next 3 months. Okay, son, next 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. What are you going to achieve? It should be negotiated. So student centricity means, to my mind, we as teachers should make it a point that to make the whole experience enjoyable, that student is taken into task as a co-decision maker, co-creation of the learning outcomes. Perhaps that is what we could keep in the back of mind to take things forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Himmat, for a nice question. Student experience. What typical, at least private universities do today in terms of student experience is provide him comfort. The AC halls, AC residences and everything, good infrastructure, the food outlets and so on and so forth. But I think we need much more than that. To me, student experience improves if, if we treat personalized everything. For example, in education, can we have a credit-based system? Can the student decide whether he wants to be fast or slow? Is something, is everything same for all students? No, the people who do differently, right? So plus, what is students' take on, various decisions that are impacting him or her, right? The student should be part of all the decision makings. In fact, if you see good universities like IITs, etc., students will be part of even the highest bodies like academic council, right? I think that improves the student experience. If students know that in the disciplinary committee, the students are going to decide what punishment should be given if you have done some violation. It's not some 60-year-old who's going to decide that. So I think if we have those kinds of things, not just infrastructure, not just AC and stuff, but these things that will make student experience much better.
Also connecting the two, because the topic was also around admissions, and as in the world of technology, we regularly, we talk about that when the markets are premature, the distribution wins. When market starts maturing, a better product wins. And when markets have matured, then the better brand wins. So I think in higher education, long back, almost like a couple of decades back, it was mostly, distribution. Like students would go to whichever is the best college in that region. And slowly as it started, the market of higher education. And when I say the word market, I don't mean to mean it a commercial term, but the space as it started evolving and started becoming more mature, the better products started winning. And that's when you see the rise of private universities happened, like VIT or several others, which actually started growing because students went for, and what does better product in education means is like better placements, better exposure to opportunities. But slowly, as you see, there are so many universities and just take an example of liberal arts. There's so many universities today on liberal arts that, it's very difficult for students to differentiate, and that's where the brands are winning. So a lot of times student does not even know what is the, the programs like syllabus, and they're just looking at the university because the university enjoys a brand, they're taking it. So question is that, one, I would love to learn from your experience in terms of what are you doing to building a better product, which means the larger student experience, which you, at your university especially, you can share some experience. And second, what are you doing to build a better and stronger brand, which is obviously a lot in the non-tangible things. So those two, what are you doing to have a better student experience in your campuses, on your institutions? And second, what are you doing to build a better, stronger brand? So probably we'll start with you, Dr. Sanghi, this time.
Thanks again. So frankly, I come from a government setup which never thought about branding. So even in my current institution, we are really not so focused on branding. We believe that if we provide good quality education and good student experience, the branding will happen eventually. It may be a little bit late, but we will, the slow and steady wins the race kind of stuff, right? What are we doing for improving student centricity and experience? Having come from IT Kanpur, I think, which is extremely student-centric institution, I'm really trying to copy pretty much everything that I've seen there. So for example, my students are in every committee on the campus, including academic council, which is, I believe, for private universities is very rare. Disciplinary committee I talked about earlier. The second thing is this decision making. The students will decide what they want to do. In terms of what courses they do when. If they don't like to do some course in the third semester, they can do it in the fifth semester if this course is being offered every odd semester, let's say. We have a completely credit-based system. We have moved on to that. A student can decide whether they want to do a 4-year degree in 5 years, they want to take off in between, they want to do some entrepreneurship, whatever. So we are creating rules which are extremely flexible, and really students decide pretty much everything that they want to do. Of course, all the standard things like infrastructure and all the clubs and sports and so on, they're there. I'm not talking about them because I think every university offers them. There is nothing special that we do in those things. I will say even the exams, etc. If somebody is not ready for an exam, the final exam we have twice, right? One is the standard end of semester exam, but if somebody says I'm not ready for this exam, then we actually repeat the exam a month later. So those kinds of things, we are trying to do. There are many other things, but I think time is limited, so I will request others to continue.
My take is that, first of all, in a private university setup, there is an inherent lacuna. There is no external examination really. So if I am the teacher, I am setting the paper, I am evaluating. And so in that sense, I can't have an impartial evaluation of myself also. I can't have impartial evaluation of the learning outcomes also. So in my university, I have tried to implement, I'm in the process still of implementing question banks. So once question banks are made covering full syllabus, then in a random fashion, the teacher himself doesn't have to select the question paper. Of course, question bank will have to be made in a fashion that, there are short questions, one section, then another little longer questions and descriptive questions. So with that, what happens, at least the learning outcome may improve. Now, this is not something which perhaps students were not asked, I must confess, but I think it will benefit the students. Intrinsically, that is what will help them. And going forward, they would also be happy in the sense that full syllabus that they have been given is actually being covered, even though it's a private university. But I see one more important point, which is given to us by NEP. NEP meaning New Education Policy 2020, which is in the implementation now, 22, 23, 24, will get implemented. I saw something very nice there, that, Indian MOOCs, what is MOOCs? As many of us know that, massively online computer open course. So there, UGC has very nicely done a nice thing that 40% of the credits, yes, 40% of the credits, weightage of any course can be through MOOCs. That means inherent flexibility. Student can pick and choose. Of course, again, negotiated between the teacher and the taught. So that flexibility will come up. Second thing, which student centricity, which in my university, from my personal background as ex-commander in the Indian Navy, then being in a corporate as vice president of TCS, you have to engage with the students, engage with the client, with the customer. I think we're trying to have a lot of sports activities in our nice campus, 60 acres campus, where students can even have match with the teachers, whether it's volleyball or cricket and what have you. So that to my mind, the single most important litmus test of student centricity is, does the student feel engaged, quote unquote, engaged in his experience in the university, whether teaching, curricular, co-curricular, whatever. And similarly, teacher should also feel engaged. So that bonding, So that is second thing which we are trying to do in our university. It's too early to see the outcomes because we're just coming out of COVID, and that is where these things will take some time to show results. Thank you.
In my view, in spite of good facilities available on the campus, flexibility made available to the students, unless good teachers are there on the roles, it's difficult to build the brand of the institute. So you should have good teachers, and if you have good teachers on the roles, naturally, even though full flexibility is available to the students, they'll be moderated. The requirements accordingly, the students will flourish. Accordingly, the fast learners, slow learners, they can be divided. They can acquire their degrees in the due course. If there is a fast learner, you can have additional courses. You can acquire honors degree and things like that. If happens, then the institute will get some name and fame. That is how the brand is built. Thank you.
So how do you find the right balance? Because one of the key things which institutions struggle with is that, especially in undergraduate, where the students' exposure is still very limited, where do you stop in terms of asking the students what is the right thing for them to do, right? So where is the balance? So the question is, let's say whenever it comes to credit, choice-based credit system, a lot of the good institutions have a policy of recommendations that come from the faculty mentor, because students do not have exposure, so they can't decide which is the right course for them. And a lot of times, I also know students will go to the seniors and ask which is the easiest subject, where do you get good marks? So they try to optimize for that than actual learning. But also we have seen across institutions, where we work, that faculty which is lenient, gives good marks, ends up getting the best feedback ratings. Faculty which is academically rigorous and makes students actually, really learn, ends up getting maybe poor feedback. So how do you then decide where the question of maturity from the student side is also, doubtful? How do you maintain a balance in bringing in what is right for them versus asking from them what is, their choice? So probably we'll start with you, Dr. Reddy.
That is where actually the counselor's role comes into. So naturally, students try to prefer the teacher, who gives them, good grades and all that. It will be there, but if you have good teachers on the roles, such things will be minimized. That is the only way. And in addition to that, student counselors will be there. They will guide the student. That is the only way. But these days, students are not, they are very, very, intelligent people. They know what course they have to do, what course they can opt for their career. Okay. That way, I think, the students are more intelligent these days. Thank you.
Yeah, in fact, that is what I have tried to say in my say, right from the word go, that it has got to be a negotiated mix. Student may not know the best. As a teacher, as a teacher have to guide him to select, and that is where the balance will come. And I want to add one more issue. I think in our education, if about 30 to 40%, I said MOOCs in my previous say, and I think about 30% more, if you make internship, more extensive or intensive internship, that will generate a lot of interest for the student. And that can lead to a lot of flexibility. I may like to go to, let's say if I'm a chemistry student, I may like to go to a pharmaceuticals company for my internship, or I may like to go to, let's say, a polymer industry or whatever. So that can really bring a lot of flexibility. And internship again means a lot of learning throughput. It's not a lazy way out. Teacher has to be fully engaged and involved. So that is second part, which can also bring a lot of flexibility, and the balance will come by teacher constantly guiding and negotiated settlement as to what has to be taught, what has to be learned, rather than leaving it entirely either to student or traditional way entirely to the teacher. Thank you.
Hemant, I think the premise of the question that students in a college, undergraduate college, are not mature enough, that's what I would like to challenge. I think students are very mature. The reason that they act in immature ways is we assume they're immature. You put responsibility on them, and they will prove to you that they're responsible people. And that's what we try to do in our university, right? So for example, a lot of private universities have this hostel restrictions, curfew timings, particularly for women and all that kind of stuff, right? We don't have any curfew timings, right? We just put some red lines, and we have initially mentors, guides who will tell them that these red lines are important, right? You can't have a fight, physical fight. You can't destroy property. You can't steal. There are 3-4 things that we say. Other than that, you can do anything under the sun at any point in time. We haven't had any problems because we keep telling the students that, look, we have given you so much flexibility because we believe you are responsible, you are accountable. And you don't see any problem after that, right? You talked about, faculty feedback. I can tell you we have done this research on faculty feedback versus easy grades when I was dean at IIT Kanpur, and we have done the same thing at JKLU. There is no correlation between easy grades and better feedback. There is no correlation at all, right? So I don't believe, I think students are very smart. Students will give you easy grades or easy feedback if they don't trust the feedback system, right? If they believe that this feedback can be leaked out or somehow can be, it's not anonymous, then they will give you, feedback which is linked to whatever, right? Otherwise, students, at the age of 18, 19 are very mature and very responsible. You just have to give that responsibility to them. Yes, some bit of counseling, some bit of advising is necessary. Thank you.
Okay, so as we talk about more flexibility and student centricity, it comes at a cost, right? So if you're talking about CBCS, I know most of the institutions have adopted CBCS in a very, I would say, superficial way, with very limited options for students to select, because at the end of the day, it requires you to have a better student-faculty ratio. You need to have more infrastructure available for those courses to be offered. You need to have faculty which actually can teach multiple, subjects, and you're not actually putting completely, different courses on the same faculty to teach, which they don't even have a lot of times background. So at private universities, when the only resources you have is the revenue that you're generating, which is the student fees. And in India anyways, research and consulting is very, very minimal. So it's largely the fees that you collect from the students. How have you addressed that? Or is that continues to be a challenge in terms of how do you make sure that you're bringing in the best kind of flexibility, student centricity? On the other hand, you have to manage it within the resources that you have, which is obviously minimal at the private university level.
So again, I'm going to say your assumptions have to be challenged. I think, does flexibility comes with a cost? Sometimes a little bit, yes. But I think it's really a mental block most of the time, right? So if I have, a batch size of 60, and if I have to offer 3 courses in an elective slot, then yes, my faculty cost goes up. I have to offer 3 where 1 was enough, right? But if I have a, student size of 180, and I have to offer 3 courses, well, I needed 3 faculty even for the other way, right? So there is really no additional cost. It's just mental block, right? And today, technology provides a solution to this, as Commander Saab have said. Now, today MOOCs are allowed by UGC. So what we do is, of course, we do invest in faculty. I think we have a faculty to student ratio, which is probably the best in the country. We have 1:13. I don't think there is any even government institution with that kind of faculty student ratio. But we still allow them to go for MOOCs. We have a tie-up with Coursera, for example, which allows a whole lot of courses to be done. And there will be 1 faculty member attached with the MOOC so that we trust our own evaluation. So only the evaluation part will be done by this faculty. All the learning is done online. And therefore, we are still able to provide a lot of flexibility to our students. And as I said, this is just a mental block to me.
I'm really impressed by this thought that, a lot of flexibility can be given to students and they're very matured. But I just want to say one thing. Let us say from my naval experience, I did BE BTech from within Naval College of Engineering, Lonavala, after becoming commissioned officer. Now, I think I don't know very well that when I go to a warship after doing my BE as part of my posting, or when I go to a naval dockyard in Bombay, Visakhapatnam, where warships are getting repaired, do I really know what all skills are expected out of me? I really don't know. Same thing I'll say in TCS. I think TCS, Wipro, Infotech, whatever, in TCS, what we used to do, I mean, it's well known. Students after BTech, after their BTech, they've joined us. After a tough selection process, they have joined us. Let me tell you, they are not at all in, plug and play mode. They are not at all in plug and play mode, meaning I can't start using them from day one. Which means what? There's a lot of gaps between what they know, and what they're expected to know. There were all of us, all these IT companies are having their own 3-month course. We used to have it in Trivandrum those days. Only 20,000 was the strength of consultants in TCS. Now it's 3 lakhs. So many centers, Odisha, Chandigarh, this and that. So my point, again, I want to say that it has got to be a negotiated position. That what they need to learn. However mature students are, we will of course not doubt their ability, that their intention should not also be doubted. I'm with this, I'm with this totally. But still we'll have to do this in a negotiated way, like carrot and stick story, negotiation. Thank you.
I have a slightly different view. It is true that, majority of the students are not employable. That is true, because they lack skills. But apart from this, we don't produce any students, suiting to a particular industry. That is not the, our cup of tea. We just produce a student with all well-rounded personality, with all the knowledge, with all the general skills. Once he opts for a particular industry, it is not a big thing for him, to immediately switch over to that task. This is what. Only thing is, by the time the student comes out as a graduate, he should be a well-rounded personality in his area. That's what I want to say.
All right, so I think I quite agree with you on the part, because a lot of the universities where we work, we have seen CBCS has actually reduced the cost, because earlier for every different stream they had faculty members who would only be teaching limited subjects and would have limited enrollment, because their seats are limited by the councils and others. But now by being able to offer the same courses to other programs also, that enrollments have increased and there is a better utilization of faculty members in the campus, because they're able to teach to other course programs. So we have seen the cost, in fact, going down by the proper implementation of that. But my final question, and then we'll probably open up if there are any questions from the audience, is 2 questions. First, when you started becoming student-centered, what is the period that you see before it starts showing you the larger outcomes in terms of admission, in terms of placements? Because a lot of times in the world of instant coffee, we are looking at immediate results. So, and the leadership or the management can be very impatient with saying, it's been 1 year, we have done it, they want to measure. So what, in your views, what is the time period that you see that being more student-centered starts yielding results in terms of the KPIs that are easily measurable, which is admission, placements, kind of things? And second is, how do you measure that? Are you getting better or you're actually getting worse? There are a lot of institutions which have tried doing certain things, like cosmetically it looked like things were getting better, but over a period of years, it seems like it was actually going worse. So 2 questions, like I said. One, what is the time frame you see when student centricity starts showing results in terms of the KPIs that are easily measurable, like placements and admissions? And second, how do you really know that you're getting better or worse?
So I don't think I would like to even connect student centricity to directly with the results. But I tell you what really happens. Once we are student centric, students have a lot more confidence in what you say, right? So today when I tell my students, so we have a program in JKLU where we say all the students we encourage to spend a semester in another university, right? And most of our students will go to IITs, IIITs, some NITs. Very few institutions take such non-degree students, but this 8-10 universities which do, our students will go there or abroad and so on, right? Now, earlier when we used to tell our students, it's good for you to spend a semester in some top institution, they were very afraid of this. This is new to them, right? But today, because of student-centric nature, a student can walk into a vice chancellor office. My PA would allow a student to walk in if I'm free at that time, while everybody else may have to take a appointment, right? So today, when I tell a student, look, why don't you apply to spend a semester in IIT Kanpur? He thinks about it and says, yeah, if vice chancellor is saying so, most probably this is in my interest, right? I'll give you a story. Like last year when I became vice chancellor, I talked to each and every graduating student for 15 minutes, right? And I asked them what their goals are, what they want to do in life in next 10 years, 20 years, and so on. At the end of this conversation, I said, look, I'm going to do one policy change here. So if I take BTech Computer Science, across the country, the median salary offered is 3.5 lakhs because all colleges depend on service industry, TCS, Wipro, Infosys, and so on. So all colleges in this country, other than IITs, BITS, and some couple of IIITs, you will see the median offering is 3.5 lakhs, right? So our place was also 3.5 lakh. We are same as everybody else. I told them that I'm not going to allow any company in campus placement which is less than 4 lakhs. Because, I think my students are superb compared to the average, right? I think if I had not done that one-to-one equation with them, if I had not said you are going to take decisions and so on, right? If I had sent this email to them, there would have been protest. But since I had so much of negotiation, so much of discussion, so much of whatever, I think they all accepted it, right? And all of them are placed with, we have one of the highest placement record in the country, right? I think that is what student centricity brings to you, that they are willing to negotiate, they're willing to listen, they're willing to talk to you, and they're willing to think that the administration is in their favor. So I think that it's a much larger outcome than somehow thinking this will lead to that is, that's not this thing. That's all.
The two questions which Hemant asked, that how much time will it take before you as a university started, rolling out your centricity program? My simple answer would be 18 months and beyond. At least 18 months or beyond, it will take time to show the results to the public, get to the realization for the teachers, for the students, for all the stakeholders, top management. The second question is more important. What are the KPIs? How do you measure? Is the student centricity program succeeding or failing? I would still think that the hard measures have got to be there. I think brand survey, I think placement, median salary in the placement, number of admissions, yes, why not? So these parameters would have to be carefully determined. And only then the program should be fine-tuned based on those, measuring those KPIs, program should be fine-tuned to, go in one direction or the other. Thank you.
In the present scenario, unless our imparting education is student-centric, the institute will not flourish at all. In due course, it will die down. So it is imperative. You are forced to be super student-centric. Only thing is, to make it successful, you should have good faculty on your roles. Then it will be all right. This is what I feel.
All right, so I do have one question, but before that, if there is anybody who has a question, would be happy to take it, or else, yeah. So I see one hand up. Can we get a mic for her, please? Is anybody around here? Can we get a mic there?
There are many
No, they have one there. I think then what happens, everybody gets to it. If you can just quickly also introduce yourself so that there's
Good evening. Just wanted to, I was finding your conversation very interesting, but I have one question. We talked about student centricity, but I feel somewhere, most of our universities lack a strong research base, because of which many of our students, even the cream de la cream of our student community, prefer going to other countries because we lack. Our universities are not providing that. Our higher education forums are not providing that, because of which we are losing a lot of talent within our country. That's my strong take on this. I may be right, I may be wrong. They're all esteemed vice chancellors sitting there, but that's my view.
Sure, thanks. I don't think anybody would disagree with you here. We all in agreement, we need to improve the research capabilities, but also it's also to do with in my personal opinion, it has to also do with what does the country really need. So while research is very, very important and everybody agrees, we also need teaching institutions in India, because looking at our demographic dividend, one of the key focus is also on making sure we have graduates that are well-rounded and can go to the industry.
No, once I am saying that, good teacher should be there on the roles means, good teacher means teaching involves, automatically, it is clubbed with research. Research and teaching, they go hand in hand. A good teacher means, naturally, he'll be interested in research also. That is how, research automatically it is included in the teaching.
If I may address this question, Madam, in your question, I sense this again, very important point you have raised. And it is a very important element of student centricity also. What is the level of my offering? It is not purely student experience. It is not purely giving trust and, freedom and respect to the student. What is the level? What am I offering? If I'm lacking in that basic itself, the rest everything is pure icing on the cake, perhaps. So that's a very good point, though that topic perhaps should be taken up in a separate session. Definitely, it's a very good point. Thank you.
If I may also add to this, I don't think students are going abroad because there is no research in our institutions. I think students are going abroad because there is no teaching in our institutions. If we take care of good teaching here, a lot of people will stay back. The second issue is, a few good institutions that we do have in this country, their admission process is just completely screwed up. I think, having a single exam for 3 hours, deciding where you will go to, it's very easy for a good student to go abroad if you can afford it, than to go through a 4-year of JEE coaching or NEET coaching or whatever. So I think if we just improve teaching in a lot of institutions in India, we will see a lot of people staying back. In fact, we will see a lot of foreigners coming to India to study if we can provide good quality education.
I totally agree. And I think one additional point here on the research, now that you brought it out, is it is also how much as a country and as an industry we value research. So if you see if you go to US, people who have done PhDs are one of the most top paid, employees at these top companies. While if you look at how many PhDs are getting employed in India at top salaries is questionable. So I think as a country, we also have to start valuing research because in India, we are a growing country, right? So we are largely middle class or lower than that, right? So the income is very important for them. So why people are also choosing less of research is also to do with what prospects exist in our country after the research. While abroad, if you go and do PhD, probably you have far better prospects there. But if there any other question, happy to take it or we'll wrap it up. I think we're out of time. So thank you so much to all of you for joining in. Glad we had lesser panelists, so we got quality time to have this conversation. Thanks again to APAC for organizing, and thank you all of you for being such a wonderful audience. Thanks so much.
I think I'd request all of you to just stand together for a group picture. Thank you. And thanks to all the panelists. Continuing with the next discussion, the next panel discussion topic is, we have heard a lot about NEP 2020 today, and this is how we do align the technology requirements with how actually NEP 2020 will be deployed on the ground. Before I introduce the panelists, I would like to announce that we have the felicitation and award ceremony today evening. So I would request all the assembled delegates here that we will be starting at 7:30 onwards, so that we would request all of you to join us for the award ceremony 7:30 p.m. onwards. So now let me introduce the panelists for this session. Let us welcome Amol Arora, Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Shamrock and Shenford Group of Schools. Round of applause for Amol. Next, we have Amrita Burman, Deputy Director of Sunbeam Group of Schools, Varanasi. A round of applause for Amrita. We next have Anju Soni, Principal Shivnadar School, Noida. A round of applause for Anju. Our next panelist is Dr. Pareen Somani. She is an independent academic scholar. Can we have Dr. Pareen on stage? We next have Srinivasan Sriram, Principal of the Mount School, Delhi. Can we have Sriram on stage? Next, we would like to welcome Harshit Bansal, Director of Abhinav Group of Schools. Can we have Harshit? We have with us Soumitra Singh Thakur, Principal of the Creek Planet School, Venus Campus in Hyderabad. And if Anju Soni, Principal, Shivnadar School, yeah. A round of applause for Anju Soni. And to moderate the discussion, may I welcome Kanak Gupta, Director of Set MR Jaipuria Schools. Show yours all.
Thank you, Rajneesh ji. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. We're coming to the fag end of the conference, and it's my absolute honor, privilege to moderate this discussion. I have the simplest and the most interesting job today to ask relevant questions to these illuminaries who are sitting on the stage. And I look forward to learning a lot. To give you an idea as to how seriously I've taken this panel discussion, I have notes over here as well, which generally most of us don't do ever since the pandemic struck, and we've all become used to panel discussions. Right. Very interesting times for all of us. The new education policy saw the light of day, I think, 34, 35 years. But we're all very excited about it. We're very excited about it because it's a very aspirational document. We are still waiting for the implementation plan, but we are very excited about that the implementation is going to help us in many ways, or not. We'll find out from our panelists today. The NEP, I strongly believe, is the starting point of reforms. It's not the end point of reforms. And there's a lot that the NEP aspires for, but that does not necessarily mean that that's the end all and be all of everything that we say and we do. I strongly believe that, for example, NEP has mandate for professional development of our educators. Well, as an educator, I strongly believe you should invest in professional development of everyone who's associated with you. I think that's very, very important. The NEP talks a lot about technology, and since March 2020, we've all been very accustomed to using technology in a big way as well. And we are going through a transition period as well, where we're talking about the real world applications, flipped learning and whatnot. So very, very exciting times for us as educators. I thought I'd just set the context and then I'd throw open the questions to the panel. I'm going to start with you, Amolji. Amol Arora, Vice Chairman of Shamford Schools. So Amolji, considering the pace with which technology is now changing, we all are trying to become predictive of as to what the next, what's next in the education fraternity coming up. And we're talking about how do we engage children better? How do we empower children better? And how do we provide experience using hybrid models? Your thoughts on that, Amolji?
Yes, thank you, Kanaka. I think, as you rightly said, two things really became the tipping point. One was NEP and, of course, the COVID situation, which forced everyone to adapt tech in education, where EdTech was always like the perennial bridesmaid, the next best thing to happen. It never actually, and nothing really changed. So I think what is next is something that's not something I'm thinking about right now. We're all thinking about what now, because we've had 2 years of different teaching learning experience, and how do I adapt it to today's classroom, where there's somewhat a backlash against tech as well. We've had enough. There's a lot of learnings, which skill sets that have been developed, because those have to be integrated now, and that's the challenge. We can't go back to doing things the way they were. So right now, I think there's a lot of experimentation, and every school is going to find their own balance of in-person versus technology. How do you enable more teachers? How do you ensure self-paced learning? And of course, we know that going forward, tech will have a more and more role. But I think one thing that has been clarified in COVID is technology alone is not going to make it. Where EdTech companies used to pay that this is it, you just give the children a content, put them in a box, and after 12 years, you open the box and suddenly it will be a transformed child. So technology is going to be an enabler for teachers, it's going to be an enabler for children to develop their self-learning paths, what will be through AI-powered assessments, curated content. So I think it's going to be a lot of experimentation for us. And what is the good thing that's happened is with COVID, teachers are now okay to experiment, and we're all okay, and parents are also okay to. Otherwise, before COVID, everything was in a status quo. Nobody wanted to change. Marks haath ho rahe hain, kya zarurat hai? So that was the kind of thought. So I think this is going to be it's going to be very dynamic, and a lot of experimentation is going to happen, and 5G is going to accelerate the IoT kind of thing. So what kind of data are we picking up for our children? How do we use that data to assess where the child's ideal, happy life should be, not just the career? So it's going to be an exciting time, and I think a lot of innovation is going to come from the EdTech side of things now, and I think that's where I'm looking forward to looking at what's out there and see what can we incorporate in our schools.
Superb. I've noted down, and I love that phrase. EdTech has been the perennial bridesmaid. I think I love that phrase that you said. But I'm glad that you're talking about the now as well, because there's so much that we need to do. And experimentation, yes, is happening. And I'd like to come back to you later, and I would pick your brains about as to how you're dealing with the pre-K segment as well, because you run such a large change. I'm going to go to Dr. Amrita Burman next. Amrita ji, we talk in India with a digital divide. Whether we like Mr. Amani or not, we talk about, the networking has become easier in most places. But we talk about the digital divide in the country. You and I work in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Do you see that digital divide? Because the NEP is very aspirational in terms of being a more like in India, not just for 2030, but 2040. Your thoughts on that, ma'am?
So first of all, good evening, and I'm so glad to be here, and I want to thank APAC for making this possible. I was here for 2 panel discussions, and I thought they were really brilliant with their thoughts. Coming to the digital divide, I think the digital divide was possibly one of the biggest problems we had, and we saw right in the face when it came to the COVID situation. Because though most of the progressive schools like us were talking really big, there was an emergency response to the problem we had, but we still could manage to look at a lot of solutions at the end of the day, because we did have children coming from more privileged backgrounds. We did come from tier 2, tier 3 towns, Nevertheless, there were a number of children who managed, to get their devices, get the internet. So things were better. But there were many, many, many children who couldn't make it at all. And, just to give you a very small example, when things became just slightly better, when we could do something, we as schools from slightly more privileged backgrounds did manage to get a few devices together, for example, to give it to children. We really couldn't do much about the internet, but we could at least try and get the devices in the hands. Or we had a set of our teachers trying to go and train, teachers from schools which were totally for the underprivileged and try to do something for them. But what I see coming, since it's very much a part of the NEP, and NEP actually from the first part that they took out when we were still discussing the format of the NEP to what finally came up during the COVID, I don't know whether most of you all noticed that there was a chapter specifically added on online teaching, which was not there in the previous format. It came up, which also means that there's a huge intent that the government has on bringing technology to education. So if you have an intent of getting technology to education, then internet has to be cheap, has to be available. Training on technology for the government school teachers, for teachers from the lower budget schools, private budget schools, is extremely important, because for progressive schools like ours, teacher training is nothing new, frankly. It was just mandated as a 50-hour, and we were probably doing even more, and even today we do more. So the digital divide is there. But I see the intent and the potential to bridge this divide, and I'm very hopeful about it, very, very optimistic.
Fantastic. I'm so happy to. So agility of your system, ma'am, I've taken away from what you said, because yes, the teachers did react, and all of us as educators strongly believe that teachers reacted in a very, very positive manner. I'm so glad to, I've noted down a couple of more points. Training of teachers being a hygiene factor, and which has always been there. And I'd love to pick your brains more on it, because you also talked about training on technology, which is something most people assume that it's just about training of using a hardware device, which it is beyond that. I think I'll pick your brains on pedagogy as well, ma'am. I'm going to go to Anju Soni ji. Ma'am, while Dr. Berman faces a challenge with the digital divide and the device access of many students, your parents would be slightly more privileged, I'd like to believe, at Shiv Nadar School in Noida. And your parents would not have that problem of device and internet access availability, probably way too many devices for one child to handle. How do you bring about that precision in education at your school? Do you want to share some best practices, keeping in mind that, yes, the last 2 years have been tough, but the coming years are going to be more challenging, because this is the generation that probably did not experience the classroom education the way ever before. Ma'am, your thoughts?
Thank you, Kanak. Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible. Okay. So the question about the digital divide is not just prevalent for a particular school or a group of schools. I think the country we belong to, digital divide, is an issue that is faced by every school. Doesn't really matter how privileged or less privileged school you might be. So that's a reality that's facing all of us, and we must acknowledge that. Of course, it came to the forefront with the pandemic. At Shiv Nadar School, and thanks to our policymakers, I think the RTE Act that came in 2009 makes sure that we try and bridge the digital divide. Having said that, at Shiv Nadar School, we've had a similar experience about the digital divide with a lot of neighborhood children coming into the school. It was important for us to act fast, make sure that there were these devices that were provided to the children. And I must officially go on record and express gratitude not just to the senior leadership at our school, but also to the parent pool that we have, the parent community, who came together as one community and ensured that every child has a digital device or a data connection, whether it was in the form of those little, I'm forgetting the name right now. Yeah, thank you so much, dongles. So that's the digital divide. Sharing of best practices, to be very honest, we have to be very, very cognizant of the fact that the generation that we are dealing with is the generation that has been born into a very, very fast-paced world, into a world of technology. Dealing with technology, technology is no stranger to them. What is important is how we tame this beast that we call technology in a structured school system. And for that, what is important is breaking down the silos of the subjects that we are living in, interdisciplinary projects, different pathways, because we must recognize that every student, every learner is different and has a different way to learn. So when I say different pathways, there are visual learners, there are learners who learn better by audio inputs, there are learners who learn better by doing things. So I think it has to be an amalgamation of all this. And to be very honest, we started on this journey, I think about a year before the pandemic happened, and where we did introduce something known as the 1:1 program, where our middle schoolers had the opportunity to use iPads during school hours for their learning, for their projects, which of course takes me back to the same thing that Dr. Berman said, professional development of the teachers. Also, this was a model which held us in good stead when the pandemic struck the world, because the children were already used to working on technology, were used to working in groups, were used to collaborate irrespective of the presence of the teacher. So it became a personalized learning pathway for every student to learn at his or her own pace, which led to something we call the personal projects at Shivnada School, where each child dived more into their area of interest, giving spark to their curiosity and the cycle of inquiry. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Subha, ma'am, you talked about parents as true partners at your school, which is something that we all believe in. And I'm not trying to steal from a tech company which advertises that, but genuinely the educators who've been trying to work with parents, I think that's something very important. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to come to Dr. Sriram. Sir, at your school, you have the education journey of every student at the Man School mapped. You also have artificial intelligence, if I remember reading your website correctly. Do you want to share some light? Because the NEP talks a lot about AI, and they talk a lot about ambient intelligence. How are you doing this at your school at this time, and how do you foresee doing it better in the future, sir?
Thank you, APAC, for having me here. Well, to be frank with you, we started off with a lot of initiatives in that arena of having AI as a leading medium to take the students through, but it got stalled due to the pandemic, and we couldn't do much. In fact, my school is situated on the outskirts of Delhi, and students that come to my school are largely from the nearby villages. So the digital divide that you've already spoken of was something which was very evident in my school as well. During the pandemic, I had to address that concern as my first priority. And hence, I was trying to get a platform which can be used by the students, not by spending a great amount of money, that even it is available on a normal mobile phone. Okay, that was my priority, and it paid to a large extent in terms of getting the students to attend the classes. So that itself was a big success to me, keeping in mind the kind of digital divide we had in other parts of the country, where even to get the students to be a part of the online lesson was a challenge. But going forward, as you rightly said, NEP talks about AI in a big way, And we are in the process of doing that as a part of our own ERP, wherein there is going to be a lot of data points that are going to be taken from each and every activity, what the students are going to do as a part of their regular schedule, and then map them with AI playing a role in getting us that data as to where do we really require to concentrate or address the concerns of students. Yes, it is in the pipeline, but to be frank, we have not implemented it yet.
I'm glad you spoke about the future and as to, how AI can map the learning in the classroom, because quite frankly, our students are getting ready for jobs that have not been invented yet. We don't know what the future holds, and probably we'll have a more entrepreneurial India is what all of us are looking. And thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Sriram. I'm going to go to Dr. Parin Samani. Dr. Samani, Dr. Sriram spoke about analytics, but I'm going to play the devil's advocate. Educators are not analysts. Educators do not understand numbers. As a teacher, why should I look at numbers and why should I look at trends and analysis that Dr. Sriram is talking about? Your thoughts, ma'am?
First of all, I would like to say a very big thank you to APAC for inviting me here. Akashji and Subhanji and all the audience on the line and off the line, that this conference of the Global Education Skills Conclave will give a lot of support, a lot of help to the people who really would love to know about what we are talking here. Going back to the digital device and how come we are that analytic or we are not analytic. Mark our word, not and yes, we are. As a teacher, as an educator, well, I'm in this field from last 35 years, so I can tell you with the confidence and all my educators and my supervisors and big guys are here, you all will agree that education is vital in each and everyone's life. To be a very thorough analytic, yes, we have to be as an educator. But wherever we need to do the work, which is more important. So when we talk about the digitalization, I think this pandemic has given a big change in our life. Number one, we always knew this digital thing, but we were not into this digital thing the way we should be. But yes, this pandemic has given us a lesson to learn that in the remote, in a small villages also, we managed to give a education to our students in a very small scale. So think about it, that the village, they did not have a television. Just start with a basic thing that everybody has a television in the city. But in the small villages, they did not have it. I'm just going out of the topic just to make it more understand our audience that even in this pandemic, though the television was so important part, but people did not have internet. People did not have a good connection. But COVID has given us that opportunity to get connected to each and everyone. Think about our grandparents. They did not know how to do the video conferencing call. But yes, they learned because they could not see their grandchildren. The grandchildren or family couldn't see them. So that was the opportunity for each and every soul in this world had the chance to be educated and to understand the new world in the technology field. In this world, we have faced all the challenges. The world is upside down. But how can we bring it together, which is very important? Yes, we are talking about all the different things. Yes, that is important. But this world is already been changed. And now we are the future. How can we bring this world together? I would like to leave the 3 messages. Number 1, we need to believe in ourselves. When we believe in ourselves, the world will believe us. As an educator, everybody who are sitting down here, we are in the field where we can bring our generation a new new person, we can flourish them. Number two, be the word you say, be authentic, be ethical. Don't make false promises. If you can do it, then just say yes, you can do it. So be ethical, because we are the role model for our children. And number three, build the bridges between society, between the people around us, between the global world. And yes, by having that thing in our mind, we can bring all the answers which are going to be answered, which is very important. But these three key messages will help each and everyone to bring it together. Thank you.
Superb. So, yes, please, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead. Please feel free to jump in, all of you. Like, we can have an absolute
I'm sorry, I won't have, because
fireside
two
chat.
of them are yet to speak, but I'll just make it. You see, that question of yours, that educators have nothing to do with numbers, I think is something that we all need to get up and say, no, it's not true. And I think possibly, because I'm just taking from what Mr. Srinivasan also said, when he spoke about AI, because I know that he's brilliant with technology. I've had my experience with him. I think the way AI and analytics came up during the pandemic, it was already there. Even I wouldn't know the power of it. But I think each one of us educators came to see the numbers, came to see the brilliance of artificial intelligence and the way data was coming up, the way the assessments were being done, the way the gaps were coming up, and the way personalized training came up. It made us all stand up and say, data, numbers matter, because they immediately told us where we need to do our stuff better, where we need to learn better, where we need to change the way we teach our children. Over to you.
I would completely endorse that, because I think the numbers, the data, everything that came out during the pandemic is what actually led us to personalize the learning and allow the learner to learn the way the learner would learn the best. Because I think the end goal of education is to help the learner learn. And it also helps us as educators, because it helps me plan better as an educator. It helps me make the necessary interventions at the right time to be able to make a success of my learner's learning journey. So I think data analytics is a very important and a key component of education. Thank you.
Well, can I add on to that? I'm
Please
sorry,
go ahead.
gentlemen.
I purposely threw this bait. I knew that all of you would take this bait because it's so close to all of us, right?
No, but I can't but agree with these two beautiful ladies here in what they said. The beauty of the whole thing is that the teachers do not have to, or the management does not have to remember anything regarding analytics. That's the beauty. They just have to go through their processes on a daily basis. It is the system that throws you all the information that you require. So that is the beauty of the system that we have built in, and you have to see it to believe it. And I request the panelists and the members here, if it is possible, do make a visit to our school, and I can demonstrate it to you. The fact.
Sir, I'm going to take you up on that offer first before anyone else grabs the opportunity. I've been wanting to visit the Man School for a very long time. I'll be coming to your school very soon.
Most welcome.
But ladies and gentlemen, it's a very important aspect to all educators, and you can see as to how passionate everyone is about analytics. Like, in God we trust, everyone else should bring numbers. I think that's something that has been said, and I think analytics is something that will drive forward trends in education, that will be predictive for all of us to understand as to what we need to be doing at our schools and using our tech platforms. Thank you so much for jumping in. I think that was important as well, and I'm glad that I asked this question. I'm going to go quickly to Soumitra Singh Thakurji. Sir, you run a school in Hyderabad, and there's a lot of talk about education in the mother tongue in the NEP. And there has been a lot of discussion about as to whether it's right, it's wrong. There's a lot of debate all over, and we've all been part of that discussion, and the audience as well. Now, can technology somehow bridge that gap that is there with regards to the mother tongue problem that a lot of educators and parents are foreseeing? Your thoughts, sir?
Thank you, Kanak. Good evening to all, and thank you to APAC for giving me this opportunity to speak here in this panel. The question is very apt in terms of NEP. When we talk about regional language, yes, up to primary, NEP is talking about regional language education. Being in South is my first experience in my 23 years of career in education. I faced a lot of challenges working with this Telugu language. But what I found is that being mother tongue, if education comes up to primary in mother tongue, it gives a lot of insight. The conceptual understanding which comes is really commendable. Now, how technology can help us? Technology can help us a lot. We all very well aware about translator of Google. All the languages are available. We can translate it in any kind of language. So let children learn into their mother tongue in a school and let technology help them. As Sriram sir is talking about AI implementation. So the augmented reality can convert the language from mother tongue to global language. So this mother tongue to global translation and then reteaching through augmented reality, same concept to the children will help them a lot. So in my opinion, technology can play a vital role in translation and giving education into regional language up to primary. I'm not talking about above primary, but yes, up to grade 5, this is going to be a very game changer in terms of education industry. Thank you.
Great. So we do feel that, the regional languages can come into the mainstream as well, which is something we all look forward to. Great. Thank you for sharing your thoughts,
Yes.
sir. I'll come back to you with more questions. I'm going to go quickly to Harshit ji. Harshit Bansal ji runs schools and preschools. Preschools are finally part of the new education policy, Harshit ji. And the thing what I wanted to pick your brain about. Now, the last 2 years has seen students, children not going to schools. You would have seen pre-K students studying at home with their parents or grandparents, family members, etc. But one problem has emerged, Harshitji, where these students who were in probably lower KG or upper KG, and when they're coming to main school now, they have online friends. They don't have real world friends. They don't have social skills that kids of that age would probably have. And, it's an irreversible travesty probably if we don't give the kids social skills. Are you facing this problem? And what do you think is the solution for this?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to APAC for having us all at this beautiful panel over here. I was already planning on presenting the against the motion part of the technology because all of my fellow panelists have gone for the motion for the technology. But I always believe that while we are talking about technology, technology has been the talk of the town since the past 2 years. COVID and NEP both have been amalgamated together and they have discussed about technology a lot. But we need to discuss how much is too much. And coming back to again to your question that yes, not only us, but everyone is now feeling that divide, that gap. The child that was in upper KG is now entered grade 3 after 2 years of lockdown and COVID. He doesn't have any friends. He doesn't have any social responsibilities. He doesn't know how to interact with the children of his own class. Leave aside the children, he's not comfortable to talk to his own teacher in the class. So until and unless that interaction is there, how is he going to express and how is he going to take what is being expressed? So while we are on the topic of talking, क्या हमें amalgamate करना है system में? We should also talk side by side, कितना हमें amalgamate करना है? NEP also talks about the integration of technology since from grade 6 onwards. So school system. One is for the teacher, one is for the student. For teachers, yes, I surely believe that teachers should be exposed to technology a lot, the data analytics and the other parts as well. But for the student, I strongly believe that till grade 5, we should limit the exposure of technology for the child. That those 8-10 years are there for his social development skills, emotional development skills, so that he can interact with his peers, learn, grow, and be the best of his own version. So that's what I believe in that area. Thank you.
With everyone's permission, especially yours, Kanak, may I just add to what? So I completely resonate with what you're saying, because the fact is we are all focusing on the technology bit that the NEP offers. And I think what we are forgetting, I don't know if that's the right word, but I feel what we are forgetting is that the pandemic has brought along with it a lot of social, emotional, psychological gaps also. So while we are educators, and by definition, if our primary job is to focus on education, I think it's equally important for us to focus on the social, emotional well-being of our children. And yes, there have been gaps observed, as correctly pointed out, where children have forgotten values of sharing, caring, how to interact socially with friends. But with this, what I would like to share is that with a very, very conscious and a very, very informed decision as educators, we decided this year at Shivnadar School that when we begin the session in April, we are not doing a plunge into academics. We are going to focus on the social, emotional well-being of our students and our teachers. Let's not forget, teachers have also had a difficult time in the last 2 years. So with this thought, we introduced something what is called the Launchpad program, which was basically giving exposure to the things that the children had forgotten or the things that the children had not been exposed to. As correctly pointed out, students who onboarded, started their school journey during the pandemic in nursery, today are in grade 1, right? Grade 1, grade 2, depending on lower KG, upper KG, etc. So I think that is very important for us to remember that our primary job is not just to actually teach. Our job is also to be the change makers that we are discussing here today. So we must take that risk and look at what is important and what is the need of the hour. And hence the personalized learning that we spoke about a while ago. Thank you.
Catalyst of change. I can see that everyone wants to chime in on this point. Harshit ji, you sparked. Ma'am, do you want to go first?
So I think I completely agree with both of them. And, somebody just mentioned in one of the panels, and I just loved that. And I thought I'll just resonate the same thought. It's all about where technology and education meets. And I think that's the very, very important point that we have to, look into. But I just wanted to mention this. As you mentioned, we both pretty much are in the same town. And coming from a place like Varanasi, where, for some reason or the other, either there's a Prime Minister's visit, which he just had about 4 days back, schools keep closing down. And that has really in the past impacted the way we manage to, connect with our students and curriculum, etc. There are certain things in academics which are important because we don't want to just rush. You need to give time. I think we all know it, so I don't want to get on with that. But what I was coming to is, even with the little ones, during the pandemic, when there was an emergency response because there was no other way, and sometimes in the course of the year, we have to connect on an online. As much as I hate to do it, we just have to do it even with the primary children. So I think when we started, it didn't work too well. But it works well today when we do intermittently have to connect with the students of the primary section. It is all got to do with how much you have researched on the way you connect to the little ones. If you really manage the time, number one, you can't just go on forever with them. It doesn't work. Do you manage to give them the right kind of educational tools that you need to use to really engage your students? It's all about engagement. And online can be both synchronous and asynchronous. Now, how well are you marrying both? So I don't really say that it's the worst thing that you can do. Actually, it's not true. It's the way you really train your staff, the way you really train the teachers, which I think is really happening beautifully at a lot of schools, that it is also successful.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And one thing that I missed mentioning earlier is, I think Dr. Burman touched upon that. It's not about technology, whether we should have it or we should not have it. I think we need to remember that the generation that we are dealing with is way, way ahead of technology by birth. You and I can't match it, and let's not attempt doing that. It's about how do we manage, how do we tame the beast called technology. So technology should be an enabler. And I think in the previous panel discussion just before ours, one of the speakers said that building the student voice and choice is very, very important. So I think what technology has done for us as educators is we need to recognize the fact that we are co-creator of the learning journey. And we're just the facilitator and not the one who knows everything. So thank you.
Kanak, can I add to
Yes, please.
Taking one step forward from what Madam
Sir,
said.
before you chime in, I'm just going to add one more point. I'm going to make it more complicated for you. आजकल के बच्चे नालायक हैं, गूगल से सब पूछ लेते हैं, अलेक्सा से बात करते हैं, और हमारे जमाने में हम लाइब्रेरी जाते थे, 18 घंटे रिसर्च करते थे. Where does that also come in with regards to the social skills, research capabilities, etc. for students, sir?
Well, first I'd like to say this point and then I'll answer this question of yours. NEP, if you read the fine print, it makes the point very clear. It does not give center stage to technology. It gives center stage to pedagogy. And that is what Madam
Rightly said.
That it is the way you need to do. If you will give too much of power to technology, I think it answers your question, Kanak. It will, finish off everything. So, बच्चे नालायक है, बिल्कुल नहीं है. हमें बच्चों को एक सही रास्ता दिखाना है.
I let him finish and then I go to add.
So, all I want to say is, we need to ensure that technology does not take over pedagogy. It should be pedagogy that controls technology. NEP is very clear about it. And I think as long as we ensure this happens, I don't think there will be, technology can only be an enabler and integrator and cannot be the decisive factor in education.
So I just wanted to add that bacche nalayak nahi hote. It is the kind of question that you put across to the students which is not up to the mark. I don't want to use that word anymore. So if I can easily find something on Google which is just at a remember level, well, we all need that kind of information. It's just information. But if it's something that they can just find and solve it, and that's the end without thinking, well, then something is wrong with the way you put things across, because people are expected to research at a much higher level, and so are our children. So do I know what's the kind of question I need to put across to the child that he can't really find it on Google? He has to think.
Application, real world problems.
Can I add one thing?
I just want to add.
Superb.
Okay.
I want to add, see, when we are talking about technology, you're talking about Google, they can ask anything, any question. A child can ask a question related to medical field also, and Alexa is answering. But are they able to comprehend? Are they able to understand? Are they able to interpret? Here comes the role of pedagogy, which Sir is talking. So when we talk about NEP, the pedagogy should be able to make them understand what they need to understand, what they need to interpret, what they need to comprehend. And then they will use it in their practical life. So what we are doing, are we looking to go back before pandemic? That's an impossible situation. So when we talk about technology implementation into primary or these social skills and everything, we are looking for moving forward. So now about this millennial generation who took birth after 2010, what will be their future? We all in our 40s and 50s, talking about a generation who is going to make their career after 10, 15 years. So when Sir started and mentioned that we don't know what is going to happen in future, actually we don't know. So when we are talking that whether to implement technology in primary or no, we can't say. We just have to facilitate.
So there's a young boy in his 30s who wants to chime in with something right now. Right, sitting right next to you.
That's why he moved back.
Please.
I was just trying to exclude myself from this.
Please.
And adding to these, Kanak, your struggle of 18 hours at the library, you did not have any distractions over there. The struggle the child now has far much more than what you had. the environment you were in, it was a coercive environment of studying. You look around, you will only see students studying over there. But nowadays, if you are researching over Google, the child is researching over Google, he has ample number of distractions present over there at just a click of a button. So the struggle, he has much more than what we had at our times.
Sure. Ma'am, you wanted to come in.
I would say that because we are living in a technology world, this is the technology era for us. If we don't encourage our future generation to be in an advanced training, in an advanced research, then how are we going to bring them up? How can we flourish them? We want, instead of going on a negative side, I would say, yes, our future generation are more advanced than what we are.
Curiosity is something we need to create in our students.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think we should encourage them to be more. And I do like the point that yes, they have more challenges because when they click off a button, there are different websites and they are not able to concentrate what they want to achieve.
Sure.
They have to achieve what they are looking to do. But because the distraction is a lot, we did not have that. So they have got that disadvantage.
Amolji, I'd like you to come in. We were talking about the social skills of children, and we're talking about technology and the divide, etc. It'll be sacrilege if you don't share experiences from your large network of schools and preschools.
Yeah, as I said, I think everyone's, there's a role for technology, and I think we all are going on that. It's not the be-all and replacement, and we've seen what has happened to some of the tech companies who are trying to raise capital now. Suddenly that whole thing has come crashing down. And it was always there. So it's like a tool. I mean, no one's question, should we have books or should we have classrooms? No, books are a part of it. So tech is a part of it. Let's keep it at that role. Yes, there's a lot of innovation happening. There's no innovation happening in books apart from maybe QR codes or some, but there's a lot of work happening there. So that's what makes it exciting. In terms of social skills, I think children are much more resilient than we think they are. Yes, there was an initial shock when they came, when they would see the teacher's face, they would be stunned because they've always seen in a Zoom dabba, and suddenly they're seeing the person come alive in front of them. So I think that they actually came across that barrier very quickly. So there were extreme cases where children used to cry when coming to school, and now they were crying when parents are coming to pick them up. They don't want to go home. So there was a lot of extreme reactions, but very quickly everyone settled down. There were those cases where kids are not used to sitting down in a place for many hours and like that. So I think kids are much more resilient, but it's the language policy also. I think for children to pick up a language, and it's much easier for them. And the challenge that we have is, we were talking about this, is we are in a different generation. We are almost a different species, and we're making rules for them who are a different species altogether. For them, as Harshit mentioned, it is challenging. I mean, those companies have professionals whose job is to hook those kids. Look at the challenge they're facing, man. Every company wants stickiness on their apps, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or Insta or whatever. And it is a big challenge for them, but they are very resilient. And the fact that this resilience is something that we need to build upon is something that we adults are facing the challenge. Why do we talk about, kids are not talking about these things. We are talking about this, we are brainstorming, there was challenge, bahut kuch karna hai. For them, it's natural, I think. So I think the social skills, yes, they missed out, we all know that, but they'll be back in normal in no time. I think I would give them credit for that.
Kids are more resilient.
I think the best part about this is when we talk about the social skills is the value for a social being, for being a social being, for interaction, for the fact that I was missing, I think has really gone up. When they were not in touch with people, fine, they were all locked up. But the moment they came to school, they realized that this is what I was missing. So I think the value of the fact that we need to be in touch with people, that human touch, that physical touch, I think the value of that has gone up tremendously.
I think the minute I entered this conference, and instead of seeing the whole team on dabbas with the APAC, had last 2 years had so many Zoom sessions, I mean, seeing people physically is just a nice experience. I'm happy to them. Anybody who's inviting me to conference, I'm like so happy to see people. That's it. I think it's not just kids. We're also very happy.
So Amolji, in the last 2 weeks, I've attended 3 conferences, and everyone started telling me now, "Sir, aap khali baithe rehte, isliye aa jate hain." So, but the organizers have very kindly slipped us a note, that we need to conclude the session, and there are other panelists who are waiting, and I respect the fact. Thank you so much for switching on the ventilation. I was melting on stage a little while ago, but I think this has been a great discussion. We talked a lot about as to how technology is impacting the education processes, and we all as educators feel that the points that I've gathered from here is that let children be, let educators get access to more development opportunities. Don't just look at it as a technology divide, but as a pedagogical intervention that is required. Look at parents as true partners in the teaching learning process. We had an industrial revolution, we had a technology revolution, and we are seeing a sort of social revolution where there is more analytics required, there is more understanding and empathy required. And I think empathy, engagement, and providing good experience would be the three pillars on which our education system would probably go forward in the future. I'm so glad to have accepted this invitation from APAC. Thank you so much for having us all over here. And I look forward to carrying forward the conversation offline with all my co-panelists who've been absolutely brilliant. And I think we touched a nerve and everyone got excited, and I'm so happy that this has been one of the most interactive panel discussions I've had the honor and privilege of moderating. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Kanak, on a closing note, you felt hot not because of the lack of ventilation, but the discussion was hot.
The discussion was very hot, absolutely. The heated discussion, and I'm so glad that we did this. Thank you so much, APAC, for inviting us, and God bless. Have a great evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Kanak Gupta, Director of St. Jaipur Schools, for wonderfully playing the role of moderator. And I would like to thank Mr. Amol Arora, Amrita Burman, Anju Soni, Dr. Praveen Somani, Srinivasan Sriram, Harshit Bansal, and Shaumitra Singh Thakur for accepting our invite to be a part of this panel discussion. And thank you so much. Yes, future is bright. It's up to us, to parents, to make children's future brighter. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. With this, I'd like to inform all of you that we have a special guest with us now. We are joined by the Honorable Ambassador of Nepal to India, Dr. Shankar P. Sharma. Big round of applause for him, please. I request him to come on stage, please. Apart from being an ambassador, being a bureaucrat, he served as a professor of economics in the Tribhuvan University. He has also served as a vice chairman of the Planning Commission of Nepal and also served as the ambassador to US representing Nepal. And I have been told that he is quite passionate about education. So I'd like to request you, sir, to give your keynote address, your thoughts on education and how two countries, India and Nepal, can collaborate in the education field. A big round of applause for Dr. Shankar P. Sharma, Honorable Ambassador of Nepal to India.
Thank you so much for your very kind introduction. I'm really honored and privileged to have been invited in this conclave, especially focusing on technology and innovation. Although I got this invitation only this morning, actually, but I said if it is a very brief program, then I can come and then attend. So organizers, they were able to accommodate me around this time, 6:30. So thank you so much for inviting me and accommodating me for this program. Great program. I listened to this last panel discussion about the new economic policy and the role of technology in the education system. I think this is a great area to be discussed, no doubt about that. If we talk about Nepal, I think there is a great digital divide. It's not only Nepal, I think most of the developing countries and even emerging countries, I guess they have the similar kind of problem. The reason is that we have rural schools. They are not very good in terms of resources. We have urban schools. Slightly better in terms of their resources, in terms of tuition fees and support. We have private schools versus public schools. Public schools, although in terms of teachers, I think they are very good. Their salaries are, I think, attractive compared to the most of the private schools. But private schools are doing much better in terms of technology, in terms of outcome. So I think this kind of digital divide and the gap between the private sector and public sector is very wide in Nepal. Now talking about the technology, I think this will itself have some implication to the internalization of the technology. the rural areas, I can say, even if you give computers, probably we don't have people to repair it in case of any problems. We may not have people who can help in the applications. We may not have people to support them in a sustainable way in the technological development and use in the rural schools. So that makes very difficult in the rural school, meaning that even if we provide computers and the teacher for computer science and technology, it becomes very difficult to sustain it. But on the other hand, if we see the private schools in Kathmandu, I think they are overwhelmed. I think it's also we have seen in the families, if the children, they don't eat, they get the smartphone. If they don't sleep, they get the smartphone. So I think it's also a relief for the parents. So that has become kind of norms for most of the household in what I have seen in Nepal and elsewhere, even in the United States. So, but technology is important, no doubt about that. I come from the economics background, but if we see some of the people who have received Nobel Prize in economics, or some of the renowned economists that we see in top universities in the United States, they have moved from physics, they have moved from mathematics, they have moved to economics from statistics. The reason is that it's easy to publish paper. I'm not saying that it's that easy, but these days, if you have to publish the papers, I think you have to have some regression, analysis, statistical analysis, econometric analysis, things like that. And these people are very good in those kind of analytics. So that's the reason we see more successful economists coming from the other disciplines like physics, mathematics, and statistics. What I have also seen in terms of technology, I think even there is a prediction from the industry experts in India that between now and 2030, the technological application in the field of consumer will increase by tenfold, 10 times. It's not 100%, 200%, it's a 10 times. So meaning that how rapidly it is increasing in all the countries. I have seen in US, number of Indian companies, they have started training people from different disciplines, and after getting training for 3 to 6 months, they are also assured to get jobs somewhere in the digital economy. And then I have seen that, and then lots of Nepali students have also participated in those areas. So the demand for digital economy, the size of digital economy, the rapid progress of digital economy is phenomenal, no doubt about that. But how do we develop it? How do we, I think, balance it with other social interactions and other fields of education and development? I think that's a very challenging issue for most of the countries, no doubt about that. Having said that, I guess this kind of discussion and interactions are very important to shape the future of technological development and its adaptation, especially in the school level, university level, college level, and even at the application level at the consumer point of consumption. India, I think, has emerged as one of the top center for digital economy and innovation. I think what I think probably is the emphasis given by India in the field of science and technology in the earlier stage that has helped India, and the emphasis given by the parents in South Asia, and especially the whole of Asia on the education and children's education. I think these are the two factors that have made India the big hub. It's not only the big hub. If you see the contribution in the export of India's goods and services, I think the computer science application, digital economy becomes number one in the world. So this has also some implication to the neighboring countries like Nepal, I think Bhutan, Bangladesh, Maldives, Sri Lanka, these countries, because what India does, I think most of the countries in the region, they would like to replicate, they would like to copy, because it's easy to come here, have communication with the Indian experts, easy to read, and get the access of innovation in India. So I think that will have a major implication to the digital development in the region. So I guess the program like this will have very valuable implication to the participants, even for the regional countries and experts who are helping the region and the neighboring countries in South Asia. With this, I guess I would like to wish for grand success for this APAC 4th Global Education and Skill Conclave. This is, I guess, just the beginning. The journey is very long. I think we should move on and then we should move forward. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Shankar P. Sharma, Honorable Ambassador of Nepal to India, for your words of wisdom. And truly, you talked about the very important aspect of digital divide, but how, again, those divide can be bridged, and how a country like India, Nepal, and the neighboring countries can all join hands together to make that comprehensive education ecosystem more meaningful and more children-friendly. Thank you so much. And I'd like to inform you that we have got representation of Nepal here in this conclave as well. Some of our partners are from Nepal, and some of the award winners are also from Nepal. But before that, we would like to present you with the speaker memento. Can we have the memento on stage, please? The speaker memento, please. A big round of applause for him, please. And though we have the main award ceremony after one panel discussion, but there are one award which we want to be given by Honorable Ambassador. So this award goes to Shiksha Anusandhan, Dean to University, and they are getting this award on the category of Outstanding Private University of East India. And for that, I would like to invite Mr. Amit Banerjee and Pritam Nayak to come on stage and receive the award. A huge round of applause for them, please. The representative from the Kathmandu World School on stage, please, for photo option. Yeah. Can you have them on stage, please? So that was Dr. Shankar P. Sharma, Honorable Ambassador of Nepal to India. Huge applause for him for sharing with us his thoughts on the collaborative opportunities between India and Nepal in the education field. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. With this, we move to the next slot, that is the industry presentation by Mr. Aditya Negi, EdTech Head of Early Salary. Can we have Mr. Aditya Negi on stage, please? A huge round of applause for him. And that will be followed by the last panel discussion of the day, NEP and digital transformation in higher education. And of course, that will be followed by the much awaited 4th APAC News Network Education Awards. So please do stay back for this award ceremony as well. Over to you, Mr. Aditya Negi, EdTech Head of Early Salary.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aditya Negi. I am the vertical head, or you can say the department head for EdTech at Early Salary. First of all, I would like to thank APAC Global for giving us this opportunity and for you all for joining us tonight. So what is Early Salary? Let me give you a brief introduction, what we are doing, what disruption we are doing in this education industry. So Early Salary, we are a 7-year-old organization based out of Pune. So far, we have disbursed 6,500 CR, and talking about, so far we have more than 12 million app downloads, and we have disbursed 2.7 million loans, right? Talking about funding, we are Series C funded backed startup backed by marquee investors like Chirate and 8 Road Ventures. So first of all, today we are sharing this forum, to understand how education industry is continuously evolving, right? So would like to share a couple of stats with you. So the number of colleges in India reached somewhat around more than 42,000 in financial year 20. And as of May 2021, the number of universities in India is above 981, which is huge. In financial year 20, GER, that is gross enrollment ratio for Indian higher education, was 27.1%. Talking about education growth, Indian education growth will grow from 180 million in 2020 to 225 million in 2025. It will increase to $313 million by 2030, which will create 5 million incremental jobs and impact somewhat around 4.23 million people. Talking about funding in EdTech ecosystem. So in year 2021, Indian startup raised 4.7 billion, which was almost double what we raised in 2020, which was somewhat around $2.2 billion. Now, either I can share some of the same monotonous stats with you guys, but I believe that since all of you belong to the same industry, you have an expertise in that. So rather than that, I'll share a story with you, which is one of my friend Ria. Okay, so Ria belongs to a lower middle class family. Her dad is a kirana store owner, right? And as a normal kirana store owner, he also wants her daughter to, have a first-class education, should speak fluent English, so that she can compete with the rest of the world, right? But again, due to some financial crunches, financial issues, he's not able to do that, right? Moving to the second part, now Ria has received that education. She's doing well. She got a job. Now, due to when pandemic hit, she wants to upskill herself, right? She wants to do some sort of data science courses. But at the same time, she doesn't want that burden to be on her parents or on her or pass it on to her friends. Phase 3, she has completed with the graduation. She has done everything. Now she's married. She moved to Mumbai. She has a kid. At the same time, moving to a metro city, the expenses and all, you understand that how expensive it is, right? So now it is difficult for her to make sure that to pass on that same level of education to her child, right? So the problem faced by Ria is similar to what other I'll say learners or parents are facing, right? So I would like to share a couple of the pain points which are happening in the edtech industry. First of all, I would like to say the transaction from the traditional approach to financial. Right now, for the matter, even if a learner or a parent wants to take any sort of loan for the education of his or her child, the first thing is they whether borrow it from their colleagues or a relative or a friend, or they go to the bank, right? But all of you understand that taking a loan from a bank is a big time hustle. It's not a piece of cake, right? Second is the target low income group. Now the problem here is that, or we understand that the credit card penetration in India is 3%, right? And apart from that, apart from tier 1 city, if you go ahead tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4, it's very difficult to get that credit line, right? So again, because of that, most of the learners have to compromise with their quality of courses. Third is the unaffordability to high quality education. Again, because of that lack of credit, the non-accessibility of that credit line, people have to compromise with the class of education. That is the harsh reality. Turnaround time. Since in current situation, most of the learner have to go to the bank to take that credit line, right? And because of that, taking my example, 4 years back when I went to a bank for a MBA loan, it took me good 20 days, okay, with back and forth visit to the banks, right? And it was a very tedious process. And because of that also, it spoils the customer experience. Last is the large scale efforts are needed to create an innovative financing model. Right now, it's a personal. Most of the banks provide a vanilla product. Say, for example, they say that, hey, you can take a 12 months loan, or you just take a personal loan, right? Can we come up with the innovative or a customizable solution, right? If a customer wants to take a K-12 loan for a student, or for a school, or for a competitive exam, can we have different product for all these set of education level, right? So now how early salary is disrupting this market, right? For education partners. First of all, early salary, we don't prefer to call ourselves as a loan partner. We call ourselves as an affordability partner to our edtech partners, to whom we want to become as a silent partner, right? We want to fund them. We want to cater every set of students, right? So the first thing, if collaborating with early salary, how it is benefiting to them, is a remarkable increase in the student enrollment. So this is the case study which we did, right? After collaborating with early salary, there was like 35% increase in the enrollments, right? Because now the drop-offs are very less. And the second part was the increase in the ticket size. Because initially, because of the lack of funds, people or the learner or the parent have to compromise with the amount, with the ticket size, right? They have to adjust, say, for example, the loan amount, if the course amount is of 1,000 and the other product is available at 500 rupees, since the credit line is not available, they have to compromise with the 500 course, right? And because of that, the ticket size got reduced. So after early salary becoming their financing partner, it has increased. The second important part is improving learner and student experience. As I mentioned, that is the most important part, right? Because right now, instead of having that 10 to 20 days back and forth visit to the bank, within 15 minutes, early salary is disbursing that loan without any physical interaction. How early salary is benefiting to a parent? Now for us, as I mentioned, we want to become that silent partner. How we portray ourselves is that we want to stay behind the student, behind the learner. We make sure that we bolster that student's confidence level so that they don't have to compromise with the high ticket size courses, right? So first, get eligibility results within a second. Now, I'm assuming most of you have taken loan, right? So the general procedure is that you have to go to the bank with all set of documents, you have to submit it, then banks take their sweet time to do the due diligence, and post that they tell you whether you are approved or rejected, right? How we function is that we have a quick journey. It's a complete digital journey. Within a fraction of a second, we tell you whether that customer, the parent, the learner is eligible to take loan from early salary or not. If yes, we will start the customer journey. If not, we will tell you upfront with a valid reason. Second is the 15 minutes onboarding journey. It's a complete digital journey. No physical interaction is required and no physical documentation is required. Easy EMI options. So we provide different tenures. We provide from 3 months to 36 months, depending upon the course, depending upon the category. All options are available, and depending upon the customer convenience, the customer can select the tenure and he can go ahead and take the course. Last but not the least, early salary, we have tied up with 150 plus edtech partners, which includes edtech partners like Byju's, White Hat, then schools and colleges and universities. So this is the edtech journey in terms of this shows that how early salary is catering from KG to PG segment, right? Generally, these are the 5 stages where a student or a learner or a parent requires some sort of financial support. It starts with the competitive, wherein we cater to both government exam preparation, competitive exam preparation like JEE and NEET. Second phase is the skill upgradation, wherein today you understand that market is so much competitive. Everyone wants to upskill themselves, right, to get a better package, better job opportunity, and most of them are going ahead and doing skill upgradation courses. And as per our research, what we have figured out, most of the people want to do data science courses or in terms of executive MBA, so that they can grow that ladder, right? So we have tied up with most of the skill upgradation companies, wherein we are providing skill upgradation, upskilling in tech, data science domain, and executive MBA. Third is the K-12 segment, wherein these days, especially post-pandemic, all the parents want their children to do some sort of online courses. All of you might have seen that White Hat ad, right, wherein a 5-year-old wants to do a coding, right? So that is there wherein we provide online classes for subject as well as STEM courses plus extracurricular courses. School, very interesting product wherein the pain point with the schools is that the cash flow. All the schools want that upfront cash payment, right? Wherein that is the biggest challenge in terms of a parent life. Most of them can't afford to pay it upfront, right? So how we are solving that problem? We are giving the upfront payment to the schools and we are converting then that amount in different EMI plans as per the customer's requirement. Last is the colleges. We finance the online colleges degree programs. Okay, again, depending upon the course tenure from 3 months till 36 months. So why early salary? So these are the biggest USPs of early salary, how we are differentiating from other financing partners or from other banks. First, no app download. It's a completely web journey. We understand that downloading an app and then doing a journey can sometimes become a cumbersome process. So we don't ask our customers or a learner to download the app. It's a complete web journey. Pan-India coverage. We understand that, so today morning only this incident happened. I was talking to a gentleman from Niti Aayog, and that person was telling me that, hey, in tier 1 city, it is very easy to get credit line, right? But once we go beyond tier 2, tier 3 cities, it's very difficult to provide credit line, and because of that, parents or learners are suffering. Early salary, we are available, we are covering Pan-India's PIN codes. Cater to new to credit segment. So I would like to tell you what is an NTC segment. Those customers who have a bureau score of -1, who hasn't taken loan in past, right? And generally banks don't entertain such customers, right? However, early salary, we have built our own algorithm. We do our due diligence on the basis of our own parameters, and then we provide a credit line to such customers. So we cater to NTC customers, and that is something which we consider as a forte. Plug and play model. We have readily available APIs, right? And we can go live with any partner at any point of time within 24 hours. Paperless support. We don't require any sort of documents to be parcel or from our team. Anyone has to go and collect or do any sort of physical verification. We are a complete digital platform. And for the matter, 98% of our cases are totally automated. No manual intervention is required in 98% of cases. Support. We have a 24/7 support system. So generally what happens, there are times when, customer is stuck at some point of time, he's clueless like what to do next. So our support team is there, to handle the customer, to help him to complete the journey, right? And the best part is our TAT, which is 15 minutes. 15 minutes is our TAT. So now you guys must be thinking like, what happened to Ria, right? So after associating with early salary, Ria fulfilled her aspiration. She got into a good school. She completed her schooling. And at the same time, she got a good quality English medium school. She got an instant approval. And moving ahead, Ria did her skill upgradation course with the help of early salary. Now she got an amazing package. And with early salary, she picked up the best course that fit her and paid for it within few months. What happened to her child? Ria moved to Mumbai with her husband and son. She wanted to give him a best quality life. And she was happy to come back to early salary and with our services, which helped her balance out her expenses. Thank you, team. Thank you so much. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya. Indeed inspiring, and we really want to see more of RIAs coming out and taking help of platform like Early Salary. Thank you so much. With this, we move to the last panel of the day. For this, I would like to invite Mr. Rajneesh, the consulting editor of APAC News Network, to come on stage and invite the speakers for this panel discussion. Over to you, Rajneesh.
Thanks, Shobik. And it's again challenging. It's the last panel discussion before we break up for the awards function, the highlight of the evening. So before I invite the panelists, I would request all of you to keep the discussion brief and concise, and the important points we will discuss very briefly and precisely. So it's my pleasure to invite the panelists on stage now. Let us welcome Professor Chandrasekhar Dubey, Vice Chancellor, R.K. Mangalam University, Gurugram. A round of applause for Professor Dubey. Mr. Sudhanshu Verma, CEO of Bennett University. A round of applause for Mr. Verma. Let me welcome Professor Prem Bharat, Pro-Chancellor of the North Cap University, Gurugram, and Chairman of Board of Governors at IIT Indian School of Mines, Dhanbad. Welcome, Professor Prem Bharat. Let's welcome Sahil Agarwal, CEO and co-founder of Rishi Hood University. We would also like to welcome Dr. Ankit Gandhi, Pro-Vice Chancellor, University of Technology, Jaipur. And we would also like to welcome Manish Mohta, Managing Director of Learning Spiral. As I mentioned, we will try to keep this as precise and concise as possible, and would like to discuss certain important aspects of NEP, which is impacting the digital transformation of institutions of higher education. And one of the very important aspects which there is an intention of the NEP to do is the current model of exams that is followed and the assessment methods. So I will start with you, Mr. Sudhanshu Verma. How are universities ready for a more uniform assessment system in the new model?
Thanks. So I want to say something before I begin. I am the only non-academician on the floor right now. Bhai, aap university chalate hain.
I just missed out on one more panelist. We have, I would like to welcome Dr. Parvinder Singh, Vice Chancellor of Rahat Bahara University of Mohali, on stage.
See, Sahil, you started a university. I didn't even do that. So with a background of a non-academician, see, I think so there are two parts to the evaluation and assessment that you talk of. One is conducting the exams and quizzes the way we do. And the other is and I think the intent is very good, is something what we call as the, it's the continual assessment, which doesn't really try and assess a student as to what his ability is to answer in that 1 hour or 2 hours of a test paper. If you were to ask me, I think the core intent of education is not about assessment. The core intent of education is of imparting knowledge. Now, if you look at why someone would join a university to do an undergrad or a postgrad, is because there is an intent in that student to actually gain that knowledge, gain that skill, get that degree, and make a career or a life for himself or herself. Now, if our intent marries that intent, and I'll say this very bluntly, I am dead against something called an exam or a test or a quiz. It does nothing but honestly makes a brilliant guy feel he's an idiot. 2 days back, I was talking to someone and we were discussing, and that person was saying, my son has given JEE and I'm not sure how much they will score. I said, how does JEE matter? Nahin, score to aana chahiye. Now the thing is, it's that 3 hours or 2 hours or 1 hour as to how your brain functions that the test will tell you whether you're good, bad or ugly. So to me, I think a continual assessment system, if put into place, is far more brilliant. Now, when it comes to can we do it, are we ready for it? I think we've been ready for it from day one, as all higher education institutions. It's just a question of opening our mind and saying, instead of a physical paper pen, I will now do it on a digitized module.
Okay.
That's my...
Okay, so a continuous assessment model, and whether the question is universities are ready or not. Professor Dubey, I'll come to you again with a similar question on basically what are your views, how universities are ready for this continuous assessment type of model?
The day, can you hear me, please? Yeah. So, the day, the UGC system with the NAC accreditation came up, I think that was the right time, that the beginning of the examination system, the whole system, what he's saying is trying to, change. In the sense that, the examinations now, NAC says are different things. They have aligned it with the national education policy, with the new education policy, with the sustainable development goals, with the criteria that are required for the continuous assessment, what sir is saying, that in the sense that, you have to go for more understanding of the thing, more creative thinking for the things, and then evaluate the things in that way, whether you're doing a skill study or you're doing a research. So more evaluation in forms of, yes, right, continuous assessment, but more creative and more kind of a, skill, more research inputs in the sense that if a student is not only learning and trying to get a graduation, the degrees are being unbundled now. When I say when degrees are being unbundled, means in NEP, you can see that you have 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year programs. Unbundling the degrees, Ryan Craig is an expert on that. 2016, he made a book on that. And he said that the way the long time of education is going on, it is going to be disrupted. And when it is going to be disrupted, it will be disrupted in the form of that you have courses like edX and Udacity are doing, with the more trust with the industry, linking especially the all experiential learning, creative thinking, and the skills with the industry. So that kind of evaluation is required now.
Thank you. Dr. Parvinder Singh, taking a cue from this, how are universities geared up from shifting? Right now, the assessment method is more content-based, and that's why this rote learning system, to what even Professor Dubey talked about, is a more a competency-based kind of assessment. So how are universities ready for this shift?
Thank you very much for giving this opportunity to share this platform with a very wisdomful colleagues by APAC. I congratulate them also for this two days mega event. And the topic which you have chosen, they're really a need of hour. With the change of the shift, particularly NEP has come, and at the same time, incidentally, this pandemic that struck to the globe also. So both things happened simultaneously. We were not prepared for the change of the assessment. Pre-pandemic was different, during pandemic it changed, and now it has altogether changed. So keeping the different verticals as suggested by UGC, no university in India, more than 1,000 universities, particularly the private segment and the deemed universities. So they are having around 100 programs in their universities. There is no constraint for the new program. So they are the need-based program which they have come into the scenario, and we are competing globally. So as far as assessment, we cannot afford to have the conservative system of the assessment. We need to change. If we have changed, we have adopted and we have applied technology, I think this is the right time. Some good private organization should shake hand with the universities, particularly higher education institution. They should be the catalyst how to adopt a assessment procedure. It should be transparent, it should be efficient, and it should be unchallenged, and it should not be only the academic, but some component from the industry is required. At the moment, our student who could not attend the classes for long time, that's more than 25, 26 months, they have the big challenge in them. Employability is a big challenge. Industry need good people. Academicians need to produce good stuff for the industry. So the assessment criteria is to be relooked, it should be redesigned, and it should be reinvented so that as per the NEP, with so much student-centric this policy, we need to apply the latest component of the assessments. That's my personal submission.
Thank you. Thank you. So an interesting aspect that we might need collaboration with private entities to foster this shift. Professor Prembrat, I'll come to you next with the same question in terms of how much of this shift is viable right now from a content-based assessment to a competency-based assessment?
Well, I think that in the present scenario, the conventional system of examination would stay. I would disagree that you don't require the examination. Examination is a necessary evil. If you don't have it, there is no learning. And therefore, what's important, what kind of examination? It's not a question of whether to have an examination, but what kind of examination. Obviously, in an ideal scenario, a continuous project-based, team-based learning, problem-solving based solution is an answer. And therefore, that requires a limitation on the number of students that you admit. When you admit 2,500 students in a particular program, is it feasible, even humanly feasible, to have one-to-one matching of evaluating that person? And if we have gone in for a mass scale assessment, technology has further enabled it. So what's important here, that while use technology for the purpose of enhancing the reach and improve academic productivity, but never be too much obsessed with using technology to conduct examination. Perhaps it might interest you to know that, I don't know, I have been associated with teaching even right now. I teach a course in my current university, irrespective of my designation. So I know the mentality, the examination system conducted online has ruined the quality of examination system totally. There's no learning at all because, in fact, even if you, with all the technology tools and AI-based solutions, people are smarter enough to know if you only look at his eye movement and head movement that some of these softwares do. They're smart enough to hoodwink that system, and therefore, any type of question you make, the Google would provide an answer, and therefore, to me, examination must be offline, must be involving the learner, must be through teamwork, and that's a very major task. I don't think our university system, the mass production system that it has now become, and the kind of teachers we engage are capable of handling that one-to-one interaction on a project-based learning, and obviously much more for skill-driven. They themselves need to know how you use that knowledge to solve the problems of society. And therefore, it's a great, and there could be no debate on whether to have that continuous assessment, but how to do it. I don't think the current state of universities are in a position to involve it.
Extremely interesting, slightly contrarian point of view, but definitely that too much leveraging of technology for exams might be inimical to the ultimate effect. I'll come to Sahil next. Again, on this similar point about what are your views on this competency-based assessment method.
Thank you. So I take a cue from sir and I agree with him. Actually, technology does not make much of a difference when it comes to assessments. We have to look at the core of assessment and identify what's the purpose. So currently, mostly assessments are happening as a way of releasing the students. Now that our job is done, they are passed and now they can go out and work in the society. Assessments are not actually happening to facilitate more learning among the students. Whether we use technology or not, it does not make a difference. At the core of assessment, we have to put purpose. That is, and I'll give my conclusion with a story from 2000-year story from Takshashila, and this fascinates me truly. Jivak and Atre, they are two giants of Ayurveda, the people who created the system of Ayurveda. One is the teacher, the other is the student at Takshashila. And the student goes to the teacher and says that, Guruji, now I feel I should go out and serve the people. He's studying Ayurveda there. And the Guru says, go to the forest, bring me some plants that don't have any medicinal value. He goes out, spends a few days, comes back and says, Guruji, I could not find any such plant. The Guru says, now you are ready to go out and serve the world. This student ends up becoming the personal physician to Gautam Buddha. That's assessment. No uniformity, no kind of a system under which this assessment is operating, no technology. It is just one-to-one, as sir was saying, because the Guru really knows the student has learned what the student came for. It is not possible in our current system. It's too mass scale, but collectively, I think we'll have to figure out some way of doing it.
Thanks. It's a nice story, and basically, it implies the value of experiential learning. And that brings me to the next question for Ankit. The question is, how much are the faculty, because that's also an important, faculty prepared or ready to impart this experiential learning-based training?
Thank you. And good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. So I'll start with the assessment part first, and then we'll move to the readiness of the faculty and staff members onto this. Currently, we do have some 4 or 5 types of assessment patterns which are prevalent here. One is the formative assessment. This formative assessment is assessment for learning. Assessment for learning says what you actually do not know, and there is an assessment for that. The second says summative assessment. The summative assessment is for assessment for learning. So that is assessment for learning is assessment for what you actually know. So this is for that assessment. The third assessment is the diagnostic assessment. And the fourth one is continuous assessment that we all are talking about. Nowadays, we also have this benchmarking assessment as well that actually compares. Now, when we are talking about national education policies and the steps that are being taken when it comes to national education policy, there are very important benchmark steps that are going to be taken into national education policy. And when we are talking about experiential learning, it is very important that the instructors or the faculty members do get ready for the assessment as well. Currently, NEP doesn't offer a direct solution to what is going to be the precise assessment policy for the students, because this is an experiential learning wherein we are going to have a multidisciplinary approach in national education policy. And at the same time, as we all know, and we have been talking about as well, like multiple entry and multiple exit system as well. So as Professor Premvat also talked about, there has to be an assessment system that is very fair, that is very transparent, and that actually assesses students' competency. Because we also know, and we have been talking about this as well, that the 60% component is going to be for core credits, and for remaining 40% that can be on online or the minor subjects or of the interest of the students. So it is going to be a combination or the amalgamation of all sort of stakeholders who are involved in the learning of the students to come together and do assessment for the students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Manish, I'll come to now. You have heard all the academicians talking about specifically on the assessment, the competency-based assessment and experiential learning. So from an industry perspective, when we are trying to shift to this competency-based assessment model, how can the industry, as an industry solution provider, help the academic institutions offer more of these shift in the assessment base, what they are following till now?
So I'll touch upon a number of critical areas. So NEP talks about all formats of assessment. So it talks about formative, summative, and it also talks about peer assessment, it talks about self-assessment, it talks about teacher assessments. So they've tried to cover every known jargon of assessments which is there, and that's put in there. We've been in this industry for nearly, a decade and a half. We also believe that, are we assessing just the student? Or are we also assessing the efficacy of the delivery of learning? Because each institute, a university, school, whatever body that we belong to, will have a particular efficacy of delivery of the learning. Every faculty, every department, a college will have a different efficacy of delivery. So the assessment as a single and foremost means of measurement is working both ways. It's just that we are focused on the learning and the student part, but that's not true. As an institute of repute, we need to be careful that this measurement is also a measurement of the efficacy of the impartation of learning. So if you slice and dice it on a different dimension, if you slice it on the teacher, on the faculty, see the trend, you will find a lot of interesting use cases. Where does technology play a role? Technology plays the role because, as learned academicians over here, they talked about that we just don't have the capacity to do a 1:1. Perhaps that would have been best, but we don't have that. So what is it that we could perhaps do which could help, at least reach midway, some way forward? So we did a lot of interesting pilots. For example, we worked with a very large university with nearly 150,000 students, and they had this continuous evaluation which colleges were doing. Colleges were assessing the students on some project work and giving the marks to the central university, and they were compiling it. So we said, let's throw technology in, let assessment happen the way it is, let them upload the project material which is visible to everybody. We'll do nothing. There's no AI, there's nothing. But the technology will make it visible to everybody. Do you know what happened to the marks? They changed. The marks changed dramatically. Same cohort, same students, same faculty, we saw a different trend. So technology can help bring in transparency at scale. And it's not about just proctoring. Proctoring came into being because of the COVID and inability to, have the physical exams. But technology can play a role in making the same assessments more powerful. So you could have digital evaluation of the scripts, but they could now be on a platform so that you could have a quality check layer on it. Because it's not that every evaluator evaluates the scripts uniformly. But as an institute, as a body of repute, you have a responsibility to evaluate every student uniformly. So we need to be sure that, if some teacher is faltering on meeting the rubrics, then what do we do? So we should have a quality check mechanism which is easy to do on a technology platform. You could bounce 10% of the scripts of an evaluator anonymously to another evaluator, and that suddenly, the mere fact that the evaluator knows that this is getting bounced, that itself becomes the trigger for him to pay more attention to what he is doing during evaluation. Perfect. So, assessment is psychological. It is also about how efficiently we are delivering it. And lastly, I would want to say that this is the only means to create big data in education. So if you ever want to create any kind of AI, analytics, or anything on top of the data, then because we cannot have complete virtual education, right? You can't have just an LMS and that's the end of education. That's utopian. It's not going to happen. So in a physical world, assessment plays the role of creation of big data. which will act as the basic backbone for creating any analytics.
Okay, thank you. So a couple of very important points. One is that assessment is not just about assessing the student, but also the efficacy of the delivery of learning. And the second was you mentioned more innovatively leveraging technology to improve the quality of assessment. So now, since we are having a paucity of time, I will run through each panelist and 1 minute to each panelist to talk about, since the topic is on NEP, one provision in NEP which you feel, which has the potential to significantly alter the whole paradigm of education, especially in the university. So starting with you, Professor Prem.
I think it's the one thing that you're talking about, although it's very difficult to find one thing in it, such a holistic thing, but the game changer is going to be the flexibility and the academic bank of credits, which would enable a student to take a course from wherever and transfer the credits. This will also put the institutions on their toes, because if they're not able to delight the students, he has an option to take it from anywhere else. And if you're offering great quality, students from anywhere else will take your courses. And therefore, the academic bank of credits and the flexibility of offering it in a modular manner is one such major game changer, and for which, fortunately, the Ministry of Education has and the UGC have put a roadmap in place where you can take a course from anywhere in the world and you can convert them into an equivalent credit. To my mind, that is going to be a major game changer. You wanted only one.
Yeah, so the very important point is flexibility of students being allowed to shift to universities that they prefer. Sudhanshu, your one critical point in NEP provision.
So I absolutely totally agree with what Professor Premrat said, to me and to my mind, and not just as part of the higher education system, but also as a parent. And my daughter was here recently before going back to US to complete her degree. And the one thing which I realized is that what we are trying to put in place now has already been there for ages back home in the Western countries. Now, the way I look at that power is this. While the intent is huge, you give the flexibility to someone like me or him or someone else to actually go and pick some subject or some course in the best of the best places and be able to do that from there versus where he is supposed to be doing it. My only worry in this whole thing is every university or every higher education institute cannot be put on the same platform. Primarily because of the depth of subjects which you teach and the faculty quality that you have. Now, can you say University A is equivalent to University B is equivalent to University C? If that was the case, everyone in NAC rating would have come at 4 and 4. So that's not going to happen. So there has to be a system where you need to equalize. Because I've seen this. I mean, many of the people I've been talking to, they say, ACP is damn good enough. But that university is not good enough for me to accept their rating and credit. So if tomorrow he goes to a university and he does subject and comes to me, it's entirely left to my imagination, where the quality of what he has done over there is, the A grade is same as my A grade. So unless we bring that, the whole power of this academic bank is going to go out of the window.
Sure.
I think the point is made, as I mentioned, that the Ministry of Education has formulated a roadmap to implement academic bank of credits. And I happened to chair that meeting, which actually had about 7 or 8 Central University Vice Chancellors, and the AICT chairman was also a member of that committee. We have responded to these issues. We look at for example, it's not compulsory for anybody to take, the university or the institution would have freedom to identify and have an MOU with institutions that you think are comparable in caliber. So it's not going to. No, there is nothing like an unlimited flexibility in life. Flexibility is only enabler. And therefore, if you implement NEP as an unlimited flexibility, will never be able to implement it. You
Sure,
require. So there is a freedom available to you to tie up with institutions that you think are comparable. Because otherwise, you can't have.
It can be evolutionary.
Absolutely,
and moving,
you decide.
towards.
And you can have MOU with as many institutions you wish. The choice is with you.
30 seconds on this. I think I need to respond to this. See, my point is very simple. So there is a regulatory body, and there are many of them, not just one, for whom you go through to actually become a college or a university. Now, if there is a standard procedure for certifying a place as a university or a college, then there is no question of the university not being good and comparable to each other. So I differ with the core.
Okay. Got it. Yes.
I was listening to the speech of Prime Minister on NEP. He said two things are important. One is lab to land or land to lab. If a student learns that by means of creative thinking, by means of continuous, by means of anything, by means of blended learning, by means of digital learning, anything. The second thing he said was also very important. That was parinam se praman, ka praman. That whatever you are doing, you are teaching the student, whether he has learned it, you get a certificate from the field, if he is working for the social outreach, for the industry, if he is working in the industry, if he is working in the internship. So multidisciplinary approach with these facilities, if you do this in 1 minute, in half a minute, I can say if you do this in a proper manner, with all the creative thinkings, all the research, I think you are going much ahead because you are thinking of the country as such, you are thinking of the nation as such.
So your emphasis is on that multidisciplinary approach.
I think one factor that gets missed out in the discussions is the emphasis on teacher education that has been put in NEP. I think that is going to be transformative because teachers are at the core of education. We have a lot of talk on student-centric education. I think what gets missed out is teacher-centric educational system. Unless we create a system which attracts great people to become teachers, we cannot create a great education system. So the reforms that will happen in B.Ed education, the integration of teacher education with other streams, that is going to play a transformative long-term role.
Thanks. Ankit.
Well, after academic bank of credit, the flexibility that had already been talked about, the multidisciplinary approach, I think internationalization of Indian education and especially Indian courses in astrology and Vedic sciences, yoga and naturopathy. This is another important aspect wherein India is going to gain a lot out of national education policy. As I was very recently talking to one lady in AICT and she mentioned very important facts to me. She said nearly 10 lakh Indian students go to 80 different countries every year, whereas we have got from 26 different countries, there are 40,000 students coming to India. So we can see a huge gap over here wherein Indian students are going to different countries. So we need to invite students from outside India to come and study here in India. And NEP can definitely play a very vital role to this.
So that both way student movement, that's where your emphasis is. Manish.
So I think by the end of the whole lineup, we'll cover the NEP policy completely. But I think that, we really cannot predict the future. So the one thing which I take from the NEP is that their ability to give the right in the hands of the student to choose what he wants to study. And we could debate on how flexible we want that to be, but that is kind of countering the lack of change in curriculum because that is top down. But now giving that right in the hands of the student, we are kind of ensuring that he would be able to choose depending upon what the environment is. Because in a 3-year course, in a 4-year course, the world is going to change dramatically and your curriculum might just not be able to take pace and change according to that.
So in an almost utopian kind of world, a student might be studying mathematics and music at the same time. Exactly. Exactly. Why not? Exactly.
I don't think students shifting too much completely whole stock and barrel from one university to another, but I do see that students could opt for taking some courses from some other place if it was feasible, and that could add some value to their degree, even remotely, just optional, no credit to the degree, but that's something which would provide a lot of richness to which otherwise might not be possible.
Exactly. Dr. Padwinder, yeah.
Not much is left to say now, but still, one of the component which impressed me, that is the Higher Education Council of India. We are fed up with multi-regulatory bodies in our country. In one university, if there are 4 courses, one is by AICTE, second by PCI, then BCI, DCI, MCI, everything. So there should be one apex body, transparency, efficiency, and honesty also. That will raise the quality of education in our country. That's the HECI is a wonderful project. It must be implemented as early as possible.
So one apex body, and maybe for paucity of time, we could have discussed otherwise the one university entrance exam, the QUET thing that is being talked about. Okay, thanks to all the panelists. With that, we come to the end of the panel discussion. And I will request if the panelists can join for a group photograph. Yeah. May I request Gopi Arora to just come and deliver a vote of thanks, and after that we'll break for some time and then reassemble for the awards function. Okay. So in about 15 to 20 minutes, we'll be starting the award ceremony here. So please reassemble in the hall.